I'm taking the CEU class at 9, but I can jump into it too.
No, it's okay. I think I'm in. I'm in. It says recording. Sweet. Can't wait. And now there's.
Hey, this is Michael Hamilton.
How's everybody doing this morning?
Good. Good morning.
Good.
How's my mic level? I'm good, thanks. How's the mic level? Can you hear me all right?
Yes.
I have a question. If somebody adds something to the chat as a document, do you know that can people who join after still see it?
I found that no, like anything that's in the chat before someone comes into the room, they can't see it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think if you leave and come back to it, erases.
Got it. Where are you guys from?
Portsmouth office.
What about you, Noah?
I'm up in Wolfboro. I'm hoping my license comes in the next day or two.
Getting ahead of it.
Yeah. No, Mark Lesniak set me up with this and he said be a good start before it comes in anyways.
Morning, everyone.
Hi, Courtney. How are you?
I'm good. It's Michael, right?
Yep.
Yes. Morning. I'm in the Portland office. Also, sorry, I have a kid in the background. I don't know if you heard that or not.
I'm sure at one point somebody's going to hear my wife scream at my 14-year-old, Noah, come downstairs right now. So we'll all be understanding. How you doing, Arthur?
Good. How are you?
Good. Where are you?
Western Mass.
I don't know about you guys, but I'm missing Brooke and her fun soundtrack in the morning.
What do you like, Trevor? What do
I
you
like a
for
lot of,
tunes, man?
I don't know, crank it up.
If you don't tell me, it's going to be Frozen or something, because I'm sure that's what's recently been played on my phone.
Oh, give me some Credence. Give me some Bruce Springsteen, Led Zeppelin. I'm really into the classics, you know, classic rock, blues.
Zoso is one of my favorite albums of all time.
John Mellencamp.
How's it going, Michael?
Hey, buddy, how you doing?
Good. How you doing? Hey, are you getting my texts at all?
No.
I texted you yesterday and this morning. I even called you this morning too. You're not getting anything, huh?
What's it? Where are you sending it to?
850-6400.
I don't know who that is.
You don't know who that is?
570.
You know what?
570.
You know who that is? That's an old buyer of mine. All right. Sorry. My phone got erased everything. So what is it?
Anyone who wants to take this down, if you have questions later, my number is 207
Yep.
570 8998. 207 570 8998.
No wonder you're not answering me.
You know, if I didn't answer you in 30 seconds, something's wrong.
I was like, what's up?
What's your name?
Michael Hamilton.
Thank you.
I'm with the Portland office of Keller Williams, Greater Portland.
So I just texted you this morning, Michael, because I haven't done the chat monitoring. So what exactly, you just want me to let you know when people are asking questions? Is that the idea here?
Yeah, I think kind of track them if I'm in the middle of a thought,
Right.
but you want to make sure that things don't get forgotten. You can
Sure,
sort of
okay.
keep track, and then at the end of a little section, be like, hey, we had this question, this question, this question. 1 second, I'm gonna get the
All right.
charger.
Yeah, that'd be good. Yep.
So good morning. How is everybody?
It's Cow Appreciation Day today, just so everyone knows.
Wow, that's important. That's important.
Have
Thank
a-
you. Courtney,
Yeah, have a
that's
glass of
important.
milk.
I'm Michael Hamilton. I am with the Greater Portland Keller Williams office. And today we're going to be talking a little bit about finding sellers, nurturing those
Right.
sellers, and then hopefully getting some listings. On with us is another Michael from the Greater Portland office. He is going to be facilitating the chat. For the most part, I don't mind if you guys jump in and ask a question live. It's just more if there's like a bunch stacking up to make sure I don't miss them, because sometimes if the chat is active, they get buried and I don't want to miss anybody's question if they're not the type to pop up and speak loudly. And then this is Mike Navarro, who's going to be co-hosting with me. Say hi, Mike.
Hello, good morning. This class has 3 Michael instructors today. That's amazing.
Nice.
Really easy to not forget our name.
Yeah.
So you'll have to bear with me. This is going to be my first Ignite presentation in this way. So I'm going to try to make it as smooth as possible, but I'm sure you guys, having gone through a couple of these, have more experience than I do in terms of getting the material out there. Before we get started, does anyone have any questions specifically that they would like to ask today?
Not yet.
What's today's material?
Today's material is finding seller leads. And then as a part of that, a little bit about qualifying those leads, deciding what kind of priority those seller leads are, and then eventually looking a little bit at your listing presentation and being prepared to give that. Make sense?
Good.
So I'm going to drop that guide in the chat. Hopefully most people are on here because I have found in the past, evidently, if you're not on when someone puts something in, you can't see it. So hopefully most of you are already in. So I just dropped the participant guide in the chat in case any of you don't have that material already. And then I'm going to drop a couple of other things in the chat that we'll be talking about. So this is the daily 10-4 coming in. This is the pre-listing questionnaire that we'll be talking about. Here is an example of what I call my listing launch guide, not a listing presentation, for a ID individual, this particular one.
We're not seeing your screen.
Oh, that's all right. They're going in the chat.
Oh, got it. Thank you.
They're actual documents that we'll be referring to in this class that you might want to actually have the document. Like the working with sellers participation guide, if you open that up, it's a PDF and you can kind of follow along. Make sense? Any other questions about this class or just how we're doing the class in general? Quiet crowd.
Yeah, and I'll just say, geez, I'm not as, I don't know all the bold sayings by heart, but hey, active participation, you'll get more out of this class. Michael and I have been doing this a long time. And yes, you can hear us just drone on and on, but please don't hesitate to ask questions, interject, interrupt. It's fine. What more participation, more activity in this class, you're going to get more out of it. So don't hide on Zoom.
How you
Anthony,
participate
don't be
here
afraid.
is how you participate out there. I think that's the one you were looking for, Mike.
That's the bold one. That's the bold statement. Thank you.
So what opportunities do you guys see for yourself in this class today? What are you hoping to accomplish?
Oh, well, obviously learning how to get more seller leads.
Okay, that's a good one. What else?
How to do it creatively. Not the way that, everyone's doing it all the time. Maybe a different take on it.
You might be disappointed there, my friend. I would say that one of the things I learned over 2 years was that reinventing the wheel seldom works and is a lot more work. And it's usually based on your limiting belief that a million people are already doing it this way. How am I going to stand out? It's not going to work. So I think that, yeah, we'll definitely talk about your unique questions, your unique challenges. But if all I told you today was call every for sale by owner on Zillow, and you're like, what the heck, man, 1,000 other agents in my area are doing it, and there's only 4 for sale by owners this month, it's still going to make you more successful if you actually implement some of the conversation techniques, some of the follow-up techniques. Does that make sense? All right, so I'm going to share. What's that?
Absolutely.
I'm going to share my screen now. Try to get into this presentation.
So these questions, like the seller questions and everything like that, these are just straight from the book. They're not like tweaked or edited or anything like that.
Which do you mean, your Ignite book?
These seller questions. Pre-listing questions, excuse me.
Correct.
Okay. The same thing with a plan your day.
So here we go. What do successful agents do every single day? Tell me the first thing about this slide that frustrates you. Anyone, get it out there.
Numerous times on each Zoom meeting,
Yep.
dial for dollars.
What was that, David? Can't hear you.
Well, let me turn up the volume. Dial for dollars.
Yep.
We've seen this a number of times at each session. And,
Yep.
That's you just have to get on the phone, and if it scares you, just do it unless you're throwing up.
And so why does that frustrate you?
That doesn't frustrate me. I have a long list of people that are in my orbit, and
Yep.
it's just do it.
Anybody else, something about looking at this list that makes you feel like, what does that mean? What are we talking about? Anything that comes to mind?
Well, learning how to do seller listing presentations in Command. I haven't really done that yet. Or
Yep.
buyer presentations. Being able to preview real estate. I've been able to do it online, but I haven't actually gone to any open houses yet. So I've asked some others and I haven't really gotten any response, except one day when I had a championship game for my daughter's softball team and I had to miss it, unfortunately. But I need to get out there more, and that's frustrating me.
What do you mean you haven't gotten a response? Like listing agents haven't approved your showings?
Yeah, I asked to shadow and I haven't gotten any responses.
Is there a particular reason you're not just setting up a showing for yourself?
What do you mean by that?
So preview real estate, I would say if you don't have an appointment set, you've already done your lead gen time, you should literally be setting up showings to go look at real estate in your area without a buyer. You should be going, you should be assessing what is it like, you should be knowing so that if your person at a soccer game asks you what's the market like, you've seen 3 houses that week and like, man, I cannot believe that $350,000 house was that. Last year that would have been a 275 house all day, and why, and like what passed and what didn't, and what people are, how people are listing stuff and how they're not listing stuff. So preview real estate should be completely within your control. You should not be waiting on anybody to make that happen. I don't know what in your area what you use. Here we use showing time. I would just hop on and be like, I'm going to schedule 3 appointments and I'm going to go on all of them. You can choose to, if you want, tell the agent that it's an agent preview. It's courteous, but they should get approved just like a buyer showing.
So if how do you get access to this information if you're not on Command and on that program? Because I'm still waiting for my license to come in.
Yep.
So is that an option for me or no?
No, it's not. You're not a licensed agent yet.
Okay.
Yep. You would need to have your access to your local board. In order to do that, you'd need to be licensed. And then if your local board is going to give you sign-in information to access the listings through your MLS and probably showing time, or if there's a comparable application. So in your case, yes, or someone else who's not licensed, you're going to have to tag along with an agent. Yep. And if you're having a hard time,
you could always call someone, an agent in your office, in your market center that has a listing, and ask for permission to go with them. But like Michael said, yeah, until you're fully licensed, you're not permitted to be in the house without a licensed agent or access someone's house. Unfortunately, your current standing is no different than a customer out on the street wanting to see a house. So, but partner with another agent. Maybe a buyer agent is showing the house and you might be able to tag along, that kind of thing. But lean on your market center. KW Culture, we're here to help you. Call an agent and say, hey, are you showing an agent a house in, we're in Portland. So, hey, are you showing a house in Westbrook today? I'd love to tag along. And I'm sure people would be open to that.
And I think in general, that's like if you don't ask, people won't tell you. In Portland, we have a really active Facebook group, and people put stuff on there, and agents are very responsive. The other day, an agent said, hey, I'm looking to do an open house. She did my open house this past weekend. Another agent said, I'm looking to get a little experience. I brought her on 2 showings yesterday, and I actually presented to her more than I did to the client, because this client has bought many properties and had a lot of experience, but I took her through like she was a buyer and said, these are the things we look at the basement. These are the things we look at on the outside, that sort of stuff. So I would say in general, reach out to people in your office and you will be surprised by how much they are probably willing to give you and also can need you. Like today, I got to put a couple of signs in. I could do a public records check. I would not mind having anyone with me for either of those things, to be like, hey, if you want to hold this while we chat and I'll put this sign in and I'll bring you through some things I think about when I'm putting a sign in, right? I'm going to go do a public records check. What is that like? I need to go to the town and what questions am I asking? Where did I get stumped? That sort of stuff. So if you're looking for stuff to do, you should find someone, even if they don't want to bring you on your team, even if you want to be on your own, even if you already have a mentor, if you don't have your time filled, you should be attaching yourself to somebody to see how they do things. Does that make sense? Cool.
So Michael, I'll go back to your original question about that slide. What frustrates people? For me, the thing that says every day, that is frustrating because that's a long list and that is hard to sustain, to do these things every day. And for a lot of agents on this class today, obviously everybody is, or mostly everybody is new. So I would challenge you just to focus, and maybe you change that, cross that every day off and just write today.
100%.
Just do it today. And then, if you get half the stuff done, great. Then tomorrow, again, just put today. I think seeing this list every day, that is frustrating because nobody does it every day. And don't think for a second that everybody does, or at least not as a solo agent. You got to leverage some of this stuff, but think about it just one day at a time.
And in my experience, you start off kind of being like, at least I did, I don't know, what am I supposed to do with my time, right? And there's this period of time where that happens. And then hopefully you start to get a little bit of business. And then there ends up being a complete, if you're not careful, lack of definition between when you are working and when you are not working. And as a result, there starts to be a lack of acceleration and deceleration. And your clients and your leads don't deserve sort of like puttering along because you haven't turned it off or turned it off. So if you're trying to do all of these things every single day and there's no definition to your schedule, you're going to show up at like a coast level. And that's not going to be impressive to people. So I would highly encourage you to decide when you're on and when you're off and what's going to be sustainable for you and stick to that, because you'll actually show up better to the people that you're trying to work with or actually working with. Does that make sense?
Michael, I have a question about that.
Yep.
So I feel like I have encountered different clients, and obviously like one client, they can't do anything until 8 o'clock at night after they put their newborn down. And then, they're not as responsive. Or I have another client who's only available on weekends. So because what you're saying is exactly what I'm doing right now. So how do you work around that?
So there's 2 parts of your business that are sort of non-negotiable and need to follow in white space. Ironically, one of them is negotiation. And usually the other one is buyer showings. You can try to control it and you can tell people when you'd like to do it and you can recommend the next time it's going to work for the house and for you, right? But if their schedule doesn't accommodate, you're either going to move on from that buyer or you're going to change that. Negotiating, you never can control it. If you have a listing and you get 25 offers on a Sunday night, like your plans are out the door for the most part, right? So those two things, you're not going to be able to completely control. You can for yourself say, offers are due Monday by 1 and expect that you're going to meet with that seller that night at 6. You can say to people that, listen, what about Tuesday or Wednesday evening for showings? Like you can try to have those boundaries set for yourself, but those two topics, realistically, it's very hard to completely control. So my answer is everything else should be very controlled. So, hey, maybe you can't control the fact that this person only can see houses at 8 p.m. All right, you're going to do that. That doesn't mean you have to also be talking to them at 9:30 and also doing research on the MLS for them at 9:45 and also sending them the documents at 10 o'clock at night, right? Okay, I'm going to give you half an hour of time that I don't get to negotiate to actually see this home. Everything else, my administrative part, my research part, all of that is going to be when in the day I say it's going to happen. Like I'm like, for me personally, for buyers, I wake up before anybody else is even awake. I'm going through the MLS and sending people specific things I think might be good for my high-end buyers. They're not even awake yet, and they're going to get an email or a text from me, and I'm done with that. And then I'm off to what I want to do at the time. I want to do it until the things I can't negotiate, like showings and negotiation, happen, right? But if you look at this whole list and you let all of this happen whenever the hell it wants to happen, good luck. Any other questions?
So Michael, one of the three Michaels, I'm sure anyone can assist me. So I'm very new. This is my very first class. I have experience where I've sent a couple of emails just trying to get basic information on how the Ignite series works. I am a 9-to-5er, so I am keeping my current employment for now. So this will be a part-time, which I do understand might be a little bit, have its own challenges. But what I wanted to find out is, are these series, this being my first one, series that I can take on and off? I would imagine that I get more of a value doing these on a series, right? But if I'm unable to, do you also facilitate information being provided to me for the ones that I'm not attending? I just, very basic, I don't know at this point, this being my first class, how the progression works.
So my understanding is that each one of these little chunks is sort of a self-contained subject. However, there's going to be a whole lot of crossover, and there is some amount of build. So there will be terminology used in this class, probably already used, that you'll be like, what are they even talking about? You can either just ask, or you're going to catch up as you're going. I think that this repeats on a schedule. So if you miss one, catch it the next time around. Also, the material is available at any time. So even if you can't watch me talk about this, like you can still read the material and get pretty ahead on your off time on your schedule.
So where is the material?
Every region is different. I don't know where you are. Like we have a drive where people can go and access that. Sorry, I don't have information.
That's okay. I'm in Connecticut, so I don't know. Like,
so I would talk to your team leader or your education director, or your agent services, whoever in your office does that, and say, hey, I'd like to find out where can I find the Ignite material.
Okay.
You put it all in the chat here too for this one.
I did for this one, but if she's trying to
So
go
it is
ahead
all in the chat.
You could ask them, hey, do you guys have this on a drive where I can look up other classes, other
I
presentations?
just put the recordings up as well. It's on YouTube, by the way.
Yeah,
I
if
just
you
put a
open the
link to
chat
that.
up.
Okay, thank you.
I just put it in the chat.
Rosa,
Yes.
so far they've all been recorded.
And I just put that link in the chat for you all. Okay.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, and the Facebook group as well.
Perfect, thank you.
All righty. So where do we generate seller leads? Where do we generate seller leads, Michael?
From our sphere.
From our sphere. Okay, how do we do that?
Calling them, emailing them, reaching out on social media and asking for referrals.
Okay, give me an example of a conversation you would have with someone from your sphere.
Well, you could go through the whole Ford thing if, you know, depending on how long ago it was that you talked to them. But basically, I intend to call some people that I know that, you know, people that I know and just introduce them to the fact that I'm working for Keller Williams and I'm happy to help them out if they have, if they're looking to buy, sell, invest in, or lease some property, that I'd be able to help them myself or introduce them to someone on, you know, worldwide on our team, that can provide them with advice and guidance in any area in the world that they're looking for.
Okay, and in that conversation, how has that gone for you so far? What have been limitations of that?
For the most part, you know, I've only been doing this for a few days now, but for the most part, it's just been, oh, that's great. You know, we're not interested right now. We'll keep you in mind. Some people, it's like, oh, well, you know, my son's a realtor. You know, if we do anything, we're going to go through him, those types of things. But you know, you capture the data, you tell them that you'll stay in touch. And hopefully I'm going to start putting them into a SMART program.
If you called me and I told you that I wanted you to list my $500,000 house tomorrow, come by and tell me how you're going to do it, would you be ready?
Oh, no.
Cool. So if in these conversations with your friends, especially your close sphere, you find that they're not ready, or they're kind of like, I don't know, like, cool, that's what's happening, or I don't know anyone. I would say that something that you can do until you can answer that question, yes, let's do that listing presentation tomorrow, is ask your friends to allow you to come by and practice that with them. Right. So I'm not looking to buy, sell, or invest. Thanks so much, man. This feels like a sales call. No problem. I totally get it. Listen, I'm really trying to refine my skills, and I trust you, and I really appreciate you. Would you mind if I came by? We'll both pretend you're looking to sell your house. I know you're not. And I can do a listing presentation for you. It would be really helpful to me. And then treat that like a real listing presentation. Whoever your mentor is, whoever your coach is, whoever you're working with, go through and say, hey, how am I going to do this listing presentation? What do I need to do? How do I pull comps? I'm going to show up for my friend just like I'm actually listing their house. This is going to do two things for you. One, it's going to clear all the cobwebs of actually being ready, because until you're ready, it's not going to show up. Until you actually think, hey, I could do this tomorrow, the universe is not going to give it to you. So when you go to your friend's house and do a listing presentation and work through all of the things that to you are big and mysterious right now, and you do it and it goes okay, your mind is going to remove and say, I'm ready to do that now. And also your impression to your friend is now going to be, oh, this guy's actually serious. And you will model for him or her how to think about you. How should I think about this person? They're a professional. They're really doing this. This wasn't just like a 30-second call along with my Amway buddy and the guy selling candles. Like, this guy has taken on this career. This guy is treating this career seriously. And the more sincere and honest you can be in that opportunity, if someone says, sure, come on over, man, the more honest you can be about your struggles with it, the more you can enroll them in this journey with you, the more that they will want to lift you up. Does that make sense?
Yep. Sounds good.
That you're showing up imperfect, you're showing up in a learning process is not going to work against you. If you are honest with a real friend about where you are, you're just going in to enroll them in your journey. Anybody else have thoughts on the database as a source? Nothing. Nothing. Any struggles? Anyone has actually called their database at all?
Yeah, a lot of it is like the follow-up conversation when you actually get somebody to talk to you.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, well, what do you think about this? And we've been in the game for 50 seconds.
Yeah.
So they're like, oh, well, what about this, this, and this? And I'm like, I'm not really sure, but I can get back to you. Let's schedule a time to talk next week. Like,
Yep.
just not being able to have those meaningful conversations of value like now.
How do you think that's happening to you, Courtney?
I think it's just because, you hear, for me, I hear lead gen is how you do it. There's no magic pill. So I'm calling every day and I'm having these conversations and I'm learning, but I mean, there's only, I'm talking to hundreds of people in a week, but I'm only learning so much in a week. So, I'm reaching out. It's just, I think it's just something that takes time, we're doing the classes, we're asking the questions. I have a text group of, 12 other real estate agents. So it's just, there's only so much you can learn, I think.
So are you doing our all partners meeting?
Yeah.
I would
I log in.
What's
I log in
that?
at 8 o'clock. I log in at 8 o'clock every morning to hear the nuggets too.
Yeah, so I would say that the all partners meeting almost always is going to give you, especially the economic update, of like 90% of what people are going to ask you about. And if you watch it the first time and you don't know, watch it again. If you watch it twice and you're still like, what is he even talking about? Like, reach out to someone. I love to talk about this stuff. I love talking about the economy. I love talking about crypto. I love to talk about stocks and how they interact with the interest rates and how that interacts with real estate. So I'll talk to you about it all day long. They'll also share some of it on the economic updates. So most people's questions for you, you don't realize it, but are related to some sort of economic factor. And if you watch our all partners meeting or anybody in another office, whatever material on a regular basis your office is putting out for you, that will help inform you. So you have, and it can be like a little canned phrase, like literally like interest rates are lower than they've almost ever been right now. We're seeing an increase in inflation right now because of all of the debt that we picked up this past year. So a lot of people think that that's going to go up. And as a result, a lot of people are buying right now. Like you can learn that. And when someone asks you what's up or what's going on with it, or do you think now is good? Like you can give the same 7 economic factors to everybody, but you have to spend 10, 20 minutes learning that phrase. You got to learn what's going on with the economy. You got to learn what's going on with interest rates. And once you have like mastered, but you have enough to like repeat something you heard somebody say, that's okay. Does that make sense? You don't.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. I think also, I mean, that's definitely what happens. But also, Michael, where do you get your economic info from? Like, where do you read about it? Where do you go? That's a question I've been asking a lot lately is where do you get your info from?
Literally everywhere. Like everything from like Wall Street brats on Reddit to, Yahoo Financial News to the New York Times. I might even read some articles about like the general national economy and be like, oh, yep. So I'm
also, Michael, I'll add is, yes, obviously, I know we're all busy. So who the heck has time to read the New York Times and the Wall Street Journal? But don't forget, we pay a lot of money to the NAR, National Association of Realtors. They're always sending out articles, economic updates. The lead economist, whose name escapes me at the moment, is amazing. And they're always sending out stats that are specific to real estate. You pick up one of those articles this month and and understand the 2 messages it's saying, just like Michael said. You repeat that to every single client, it's going to set you apart, right? Knowing what's going on in the economy and how that affects a home buyer or home seller sets real estate agents apart. Anybody can sell or walk into a house or a buyer and show them houses and open a door and turn the lights on. Anybody can do that. But what sets you apart is providing real value to a client. A customer can look on the internet and see what's for sale and what, how many bedrooms and bathrooms it has. But what sets you apart and what makes you a professional in this business is understanding those market impacts and how that impacts each of our clients.
Hello?
So, yeah, I mean, just try and just
Hi.
read the NAR.
So quick
newsletter.
question here.
So yeah, that's just an easy place to start. NAR newsletter. And then of course, keep your eyes open for news headlines. And you know, Courtney's on my team. I know you're reading that stuff. So pick a couple of nuggets, some valuable nuggets, 2-3 nuggets. And that's going to take you a long way with customers who are looking for real high level value.
Thank you, Michaels.
All right, so who is doing open houses at this point? Yeah, how's it been?
It's getting better.
Have you been able to convert any of those leads from the open houses?
Almost.
What, if anything, has set you back?
Standing out. I was at an open house in Portland, and I had out of all of the people who came in, I had 3 that didn't have agents, and they were like, they were very forthcoming. They were like, yeah, we just got pre-approved, we're looking, you know, we're a little cautious because of the market, but like we don't even have an agent yet, like we just started. And I'm like, great. So I'm having good conversations, and luckily I obviously researched the property that I'm giving the open house at, and you know, I give them your rights as a client versus customer, and kind of set them up as best as I can. And then I try to make like a personal connection as well, and that varies few and far between. And then at the end, when they're getting ready to leave, it was more just like, hey, do you mind if I follow up with you? I know you don't have an agent right now. I'd love to help you out. We had great conversation, so on and so forth.
Did you convert any of those 3?
Not yet, almost.
What is it?
That was this weekend, right, Courtney? That was.
It was just this weekend, and it just a couple of them are kind of looking to see what other agents are out there and if we fit. And so I was like, I'd love to interview for the position more formally if that is an option. And it's just kind of like right now I'm trying to find the balance between being too much and not enough, if that makes sense. Like I don't want to be overbearing and clingy. You know, it's much like a relationship. It is a relationship. So I don't want to be overbearing and clingy, but I want them to remember me. Just trying to find that balance.
Did you, at any point in the actual open house or in your follow-up call, tell them about what the process will look like and what they can expect?
I think I mentioned it a little bit, but it wasn't like the forefront. It was just, if you like this property and you want to make an offer, then this is what it'll look like.
I would highly recommend with buyers figuring out how to, in either your first or very early conversation, talking through the transaction process with them and hitting the important points and educating them on the process. Ask for permission. You know, if they're first-time home buyers, do you mind if I tell you a little bit about the process? I know this is the first time for you guys. If they're coming back to the market, even if it was 6 months ago, you know, the market's changed a little bit. Do you mind if I tell you a little bit about the market now? Right? And then bring them through the process, including the major steps and negotiations that can take place. And when you do that, put yourself in the picture with them. So the first thing that we will do, if they haven't been pre-qualified, is get you pre-qualified with a lender. One of the most important things about that is not only, obviously, we both want to know that you guys are going to be able to buy a house and afford it, but also like which lending program is going to be best for you, and what does that tell you and I about which houses we can look at. You might not know, but different lending programs have different appraisal standards. So it's really important for me to know what program are they with and what houses are we going to be able to look at. So once we do that, and then you take them through what you're going to do next, what you're going to do next. It takes me about 17 minutes to do that with a buyer, and I will literally do it with an internet lead on our first call. And I've had people literally be like, that's a lot of information. Like, you do that with them? I'm like, yeah, I do. And I tell them at the end, like, I don't expect you to remember almost any of that, but I definitely do not. This is a fast moving market. And I don't want for you to hear something the first time when you're trying to make an offer. I don't want for you to hear something the first time when we're trying to negotiate inspections with less than 24 hours left, right? I want it to, like, at each step be like, okay, I remember this, we talked about this. So if you don't remember what we just talked about, that's okay, but now you've seen it once.
Is that your buyer seller presentation?
That would be the buyer one. If it's an open house, unrepresented buyer. If a seller comes through and they're just checking out the thing and they're like, so, what has it been like? Super important for you to know are numbers in a neighborhood. Numbers in a neighborhood, or numbers in a zip code, or numbers in a county. Like, what has it been like? And you can even just like look at them once and memorize them once. How much are we up year over year, right? You know that, and someone comes in and says like, oh yeah, we're just checking it out. We're maybe a little curious what ours would go for. And you're able to say, well, it's insane that the market is up 26.2% this year over last, and a typical market gives you about a 5% increase. So obviously we're up a lot right now. If I was going to do it, I would do it now. A lot of people wonder if the market is going to end up giving back a couple of years of appreciation because we're getting it all this year. So if it is important to you, it's definitely something that we're talking about now. And then let it go. What are they going to do? What are they going to think? What is it? Really, 26.2%? That's a lot. And then follow up with them. But if you don't have that info, it's going to be hard for you to have the conversation, right?
Hey, Michael.
Oh, go ahead, Trevor.
How about you and Courtney do a little role play? Pretend she's at the open house and show us how you would proceed.
And before they do that, I think it's a great idea. Real quick, sort of focusing back on seller leads.
Yep.
At open houses, yes, a lot of buyers show up, right?
Yep.
But who else shows up to open houses?
If you lose
Agents
sellers,
who want to figure out how to price their homes.
Yes, okay. And who else?
look, you lose sellers.
Sellers looking to see
Nosy
how to sell them.
neighbors. The neighbors come by. Oh man, my neighbor's house on the market. I'm gonna go look at it and see how their house compares to my house. And they don't do that just because they have free time. They're doing that because they're thinking about selling. If my neighbor's house 2 doors down is on the market for 400,000, holy crap. I wonder what my house looks like compared to theirs. And maybe I'll put my house on the market for four and a quarter because I got the updated kitchen. Nosy neighbors attend open houses. So if you can identify them, that's a seller.
We're not going to price the house $25,000 just because you put that kitchen in for yourself, Michael.
Okay, whatever. I'm sorry. Jeez. Well, it's got marble countertops. Sorry.
Yeah, so anybody on this call, even if you have not had a single listing or a single buyer, you should, if you're, for instance, Courtney and Michael, Courtney, you should know the last 5 listings that you guys put on your team. How many offers did they get? How many showings did they get in the first week? So that if somebody comes into that open house and they're like, oh yeah, we're just the neighborhood, we heard the market's really busy. You can be like, yeah, I mean, we had something come on last Wednesday. It had 60 showings and 21 offers. Really? I mean, I heard it was crazy, but that's really intense. You can't obviously do that with your business, but you can do it with the teams. And if you're not on a team, you can do it with the offices. There are people that you can like see, okay, like, well, that went up and that pending, and that went up and that one pending. Can you tell me a little bit about what that went like? Or you can just troll Facebook. Everybody's happy to share like under contract over market with 61 showings. Like, people are putting that out there. That's information you now have about how the market is operating. And that's for the nosy neighbors. That's the kind of stuff that they are interested in hearing, that they probably themselves could figure out, but they don't necessarily have ready access to. Make sense?
There was this guy during the open house this weekend in Portland. Sorry, I promise I won't be talking the whole time, but there's this guy during the open house, and I was showing another couple the garage. Sorry. And this guy, one of the neighbors, he's jogging, and he jogs by, and then he turns around and he comes back, and he like comes in the backyard, and he's like looking around, and I was like, hey, you want to see the inside? You could jog in place if you want, like trying to be like funny, like keep his heart rate up. And he's like, no, I'm just looking to see like what they have that I don't have. And I was like, oh, well, like, what do you want to know? And he's like, no, I'm good, thanks. And then just like ran away. And I was like, shit. Like, so yeah, nosy
That-
neighbors for sure.
Let's move on from that for a second. We're going to get back to some of that, what you just brought up when we talk about like categorizing seller leads and how urgent is it per person and how much time do they need to take of yours right away versus over the next 60 days versus some sort of drip maybe. But talk to me about referrals specifically, and how do you find seller leads through your referrals?
And Michael, just for clarification, this is a referral from maybe a database call?
Yeah, could be a call, could be a Facebook post that you put out that made somebody ask you a question or comment that indicated to you that they had an interest, right? And especially for newer agents out there, like let's say you attend an open house this past Sunday, and when you're there, there's 31 people there in the hour you're there. There is no reason that you can't post a photo of yourself walking away from that open house with like a face. I was just in an open house and there was a line out the door. A ton of people went through. Right? And A, hey, don't forget I'm doing real estate. B, don't forget the market is crazy. C, don't forget that like if you want to sell, maybe you should do it right now. Posts like that give general information with personality about what you're doing can turn into a referral online, on Facebook, on Instagram. Obviously, there's the call. And do you know of anyone who's thinking about buying, selling, or investing in real estate? Yes, that's a call you can do. But having general conversations and sharing a little bit about who you are and what you're doing is, in my opinion, more likely to actually have someone engage in a conversation about who you are and what you're doing. Right? Questions on that?
Yes.
Sure.
Okay, so can you share what that conversation would look like because you said about who you are and what you're doing, as opposed to, making it all sound real estate-y?
Like the Facebook post I just mentioned would be this is who I am and what I'm doing.
But
that didn't sound super real estate-y, and it's one way. An actual conversation would be, it's like people think about it too much about like, all right, this is a lead gen moment. Let's pretend that, for instance, my daughter's doing Princess Dance Camp this next week. I'm going to be there and people are going to ask me how the summer's been going. And people are probably going to ask me like, oh, did you guys just start here? And I'm going to say, summer's been great. I'm trying to soak up as much of it as I can. It's flying by. It's also a challenge because it's our most busy time in real estate. So I really want to be with the family, but I also have to do that. And so instead of being like, oh, market is awesome and things are great, I'm sharing a little bit of vulnerability about my experience of it. That also says what I do and that I'm busy, right? And then I don't know how they're going to respond.
Oh, Michael, you're in real estate,
right? Well, oh yeah, and I'm sure you've heard it's been crazy this past year and definitely this summer. What about you? Is this your first time here? Do not keep hitting on real estate. It'll take you where you need to go if you put it in anywhere. You want to like ask that person about themselves and give honest information about yourself, just like you would in any other conversation. It's not like a magic real estate conversation all of a sudden. Does that make sense? Like when people, if there is going to be synthesis between you and that person, it's going to present itself. Whether they're like, and the one thing I would say is slightly different is when people say stuff that you know you eventually could loop back to real estate. So we're at the same thing, and the person's like, oh yeah, you know, we're putting a back deck on the house this year, and oh my gosh, we couldn't get pressure treated lumber and it's delayed by 6 weeks. Just be like, yeah, man, that's been really frustrating. I've had some builds go up like 40% since the time that they were quoted to when they were built. Can you imagine if that was your whole house? Right? Like you find where the connection is to what you're doing and what you do. Does that make sense? Yes. No.
Nina, and follow up to that?
Yeah, that sounds like an easier conversation though. Like, I mean, that's not like every day. Like, I guess I'm just kind of more curious about,
when you're making your actual calls.
yeah.
So the thing is that your calls, I think that the challenge that newer agents have is that they're always looking for now business, which ends up feeling awkward because the person receiving it can feel that like the only reason you're doing this call is for now business, right? And then the whole thing goes off the rails. If you said, I just want to make 40 calls this month and actually have conversations, and none of them turned into listing presentations, but then you actually call those people back in another month, and you actually called them back in another month, and in any one of those 3 conversations, they asked you about what you were doing, and you were honest about the fact that like, oh man, real estate's like a little bit harder than I thought it was gonna be. I'm like, I'm just like trying to figure out who I can help find a house. In any of those conversations, it will be more effective for you than like, hey, this is so-and-so from Keller Williams. Have you thought about buying, selling, investing in real estate? A, if they actually pick up, or B, if you don't actually make that phone call because you don't want to spit that sentence out, which is more likely what's actually happening. You're not calling your whole database, you're cherry picking them because you don't want to call and say, hi, this is Michael Hamilton with Keller Williams Real Estate. I just wanted you to know that I just got licensed. Have you guys thought about buying, selling, and investing in real estate? There's very few people that actually want to do that with everybody in their phone.
So what are you saying then, Michael, when you're calling people?
So yesterday we went over the,
Hello, I'm talking about life. Do you know how many areas of everybody's life right now relate to real estate? Everything does. There is tenancy issues going on in the economy right now. There is rental issues going on in the economy right now. There is building materials issues going on in the economy right now. There are interest rate changes going on in the economy right now. So many people are affected by things that are related to real estate that you don't even have to work to bring them in. They're going to say something
like, hey, how are you?
Hey, how are you? How are you doing? What is going on, man? Ask questions about them. How are they doing? Hey, Mike, how you doing, man? I saw that you guys just finished a flip. How was it?
Good.
Yeah? Was it more expensive than you thought it was going to be?
No, we stayed in budget.
Yeah. How the heck did you do that, dude?
I guess just good
Big
estimate.
budget.
I'm not getting the offers that I want on it though.
What do you think went wrong? Like,
I have no idea.
And yes, he's a real estate agent, and yes, he has a flip, so it's a little bit of a cheat. But whatever someone is doing, if you don't know what they're doing, start there. If you don't know what to talk to them about, start there. That's really the first question. If I don't have a good, legitimate connecting question to you, I've clearly failed in this relationship. You don't say that, but that's the internal dialogue, and I need to start with that. How am I opening up a conversation because I don't even know what's going on with you anymore? And then once I have that, cool, now I can ask you about that. Cool. And you're going to ask me reciprocally what the heck's going on with me. And I'm going to be honest instead of showy and fake about what's going on with me. And I'm going to say, this is what I'm trying to learn. This is where I'm trying to go. Right. And I'm going to put that out there, and that person is going to tuck it away. And now they know, again, I'm a real estate agent and this is what I want. And when they hear something related to that, and the more that we do it, the more they're going to be like, you know, who's actually I like and actually called me and I had a good conversation with? Mike tomorrow. You should call him. But that's not going to be tomorrow, probably, to be honest. It's probably not going to be next month, maybe 6 months. If you've actually done this and followed through, you might get that first like actual go list me call. Hey, you know, my friend Mike, you said I could call you. You're going to be like, what? It actually worked, because it's not going to feel like for 6 months it was going anywhere. It's going to feel like you're just having conversations and reminding people of what you do and actually getting to know where the heck they are in their life and seeing if there's any connection to how you could help them with real estate.
It was that using the Ford strategy in a way, you know?
100%. That's what Ford is. Ford is like, if you don't know how to have a conversation, start
Right.
here.
So a lot of people in my database that, you know, I haven't talked to them in forever, you know, so I think that's where I'm gonna have to start with the, you know, the Ford method. But some of them, I feel like it's almost, it's better just to be upfront, you know, and I'm gonna pick and choose some of them. You know, if I call my cousin Margaret, I'm just gonna say, hey, Margaret, guess what? I'm selling real estate, you know?
Yeah, I would say that the first conversation to let people know what you're doing is different than the connect conversation on a regular basis. And I think that when you first get in, you definitely have a unique opportunity to announce to people and ask for their help in this expedition you've begun. And it can be still 100% sincere and comfortable, but only go with that strategy if you're actually going to do it. If you still don't even feel comfortable being like, you know, I just got into real estate and I'm a little bit overwhelmed, but really excited to get this started. And I wanted to ask you if you know anybody who needs help in real estate. They could be buying, they could be selling, they could be investing. Please send them my way. I'm trying to build my business, and I'm sure you know that can be a challenging endeavor. If you're comfortable having that conversation, do it with the people the first time around.
Yeah, I think there are some that I'm going to be more comfortable being just direct, and others I'm going to be more comfortable having, you know, building up to it in a way.
Supporting it. Yep. Any other questions?
Hey, I've got a quick thought that I've said before in some of these ignites for some of the other folks as a fellow new guy. Try to find someone, like they say, like a cadaver, call like a random business, a place you used to work, someone that you can just really like just botch it and just see what, like, fail one. Because how are you going to know what works if you don't know what doesn't work? Like, just call them and see what instantly gets them like uninterested, and then try to pull them back in, and then see if you can kind of hit them again with something awful. Like, hey, I want to sell your home. Like, what? Who is this? You know, just like mess around with them. Cause I've done stuff like that in other aspects of life. And I've always felt after like, oh, like it kind of like opens it up. If you're feeling like kind of nervous talking to like your friends, just kind of shoot the shit with random people. And then you're like, oh, okay. All right. I can call my cousin now, cause I know 100 things I'm not going to say to them. And
yeah, I think definitely sometimes people who are a little bit more separated from us are easy to learn on. There's a lot of pressure with friends and family. So if you start a conversation with somebody and they give you any indication that they might be a seller or know someone who's a seller, one of the next things you have to do is find out what their motivation, needs, and timeline are like, right? So here are some examples of the kind of questions you might ask people to get an idea of what kind of seller they are. Is this person in forbearance right now and has, you know, a month left until they're actually entering the foreclosure process? That's a totally different person than my daughter is graduating high school next year and we're thinking about maybe next June doing this, right? So you need to ask the questions to figure out, why are they thinking about selling? What does that timeline look like? Is it affected by any information you currently have that they should know? Any questions about some of these connecting questions?
It's really, really important. to find out what the motivation is.
Yep.
You cannot
100%.
serve a client if you don't know what they need. And the only way to find out what they need is to ask these questions and more. And sometimes they don't even know why. I mean, foreclosure is pretty clear one. Sometimes people are like, I'm just thinking of selling because I've heard this market is so hot, right? But what is their real motivation? Is it just money? Is it downsizing? Maybe it's just a better interest rate and they should be refinancing because, it might be hard to find a new house. But, it's what do they really and truly need? We need to know that before we can actually serve them and get them to move, like not move houses, but move the needle on the spectrum of what they need. So it's super important. Questions.
Yeah. And I would say my experience of some newer agents is sometimes they feel invasive or rude asking these questions. And it's actually rude to not do it. People won't tell you this, but if you rush to business and you rush to try to help them and they feel like you don't even know what they want, that's insulting. Okay, so you're just going to give me a price? You don't even know where I want to go or what kind of experience I want to have or when I want to do it or where I'm going next. So the more that you can learn about someone's situation and the more that you can ask follow-up questions and the more that you can be honest and say, man, I'm not sure, what, we should look into that. I'm going to get back to you on that. Like all of that shows them that you are actually concerned about their situation and their unique situation, which builds trust. So you ask some of these questions, right? What does this help us do?
The trust.
What's that?
It helps us gain their trust and see our loyalty by asking and seeing that we're just there to help them.
Yes, very true. Hopefully put some hooks in, so to speak. And then the next thing it helps us do is categorize our sellers. And not even priority is a good word in terms of time, but I don't want to feel like, just because someone is 12 months out, they're not important. They're just on a different category and therefore different follow-up plan makes sense for them. So A, B, C seller. Somebody read to me, what is an A seller?
Able, ready, and willing to do business in 0 to 14 days. Action, daily follow-up to secure an appointment.
So how often am I following up with someone who's ready to do business in the next 2 weeks?
Every day.
Every single day. So if I call a for sale by owner that popped on Zillow tomorrow, when is the next time I'm calling them?
Yesterday.
Yep. And then the next time I'm calling them?
Following day.
And the next time. And what is 80% or more likely to happen if I put them on a weekly call?
They're gone.
I'm
They went
going
with someone else.
that listing and go on the MLS in 5 or 6 days, right? It might take me 6 months, by the way, but I am going to call them every day if there was a chance that they're listing in the next 2 weeks. Someone already has a listing on, someone's listing just expired, they're an A person until they tell me like, look, I don't want to do this until the end of July. I'm still going to follow up with them mid-June and make sure they didn't change their mind. But unless they tell me that, I am following up with them every day, or they're going to list with somebody else, or they're going to, worse yet, fail at what they're doing because they haven't been given good direction. And your goal is to help them. So if someone's giving you an honest indication that within 2 weeks they need help, help them within 2 weeks. Right? So you have to follow up every day if you categorize someone as A. What is B?
Able, ready, and willing to do business in 15 to 60 days. Oop.
15 to 60 days.
Action, put them into your database and call every 2 to 3 days or at least once a week.
Correct. So somebody give me an example of a B seller.
Maybe it's one of those people who came to your open house and said that they were thinking of putting their house on the market in the next couple months.
In the next couple of months. So what would your first follow-up be?
I'd probably give them a call and get to know them a little bit. And if I hadn't already done it when I met them in person, ask some of those connecting questions to know what their motivation is for selling.
Yep.
And what their timeline is.
Right. So if someone says 15 to 60 days to me, I want to find out why 60. Why not 15? And if it's truly 60, I want to find out how I can be involved or help. If it's just purely a practical thing of, well, I finish nursing school then, and then we're going to be moving for a job. Okay, cool. There's not much I'm going to in, but I'm still going to say, all right, let's sit down and make a plan over the next 60 days to make sure by the time we get there, we're actually ready and there's not a bunch of pressure on you while you're trying to do that other thing, right? There might be some decluttering that needs to happen in the house. There might be even a repaint that needs to happen. There might be some permits that haven't been gotten that need to be after the fact gotten. There's things that can happen before listing, right? And if somebody says to me 60 days, I don't say, cool, I'll call you back in 60 days. I say, yeah, sounds like 60 days is a great plan. We should still meet this week and talk about the plan between now and then. Make sure that we take care of everything that needs to happen and we're on the same page so it can be an easy process and relaxed when we get on the market and not a frenzy. Does that make sense?
What is the minimum amount of days that you need to list a house? Like, so you've got to get it on Flex, you've got to get it on
24
wherever.
hours.
24 hours.
Yeah.
You just need to get pictures. Hold on, we have a question. Noah, do you have a question?
Noah's got his hand up.
I was just going to, can you hear me all right?
Yes.
Yep.
All right, I was just going to add to the type B seller lead. Maybe it's somebody this time of year looking to sell before the next school season starts up. So they have the summertime with the kids and everything, but they want to get this over with before they might be going to a new school district or whatever like that.
Yep. And that's a great thought, Noah. A lot of people, there's also a little bit of ignorance around the actual time of the sale. So they're thinking in their head, when do they want to sign paperwork? And they tell you 60 days. And I'm thinking, cool, we should have started yesterday. Right. Yeah. Or it's literally that like, well, listen, I don't want to be out for 120 days. Therefore, I know it takes like 45 to 60 days to list and sell. I shouldn't start for another 60. And I'm still saying to them, no, we should start today and we'll just get you a possession after closing. No, we'll still start today and we want to get under contract and understand we're not closing until then. Great example with the end of summer thing. Other buyers are thinking the same stuff. Almost said the bad word, but like they're thinking we want to be in by September 1. So we can't list and buy on September 1. Buyer comes and looks at house first week of August. Buyer makes offer, you go under contract. We still don't close until school starts and both people are fine with that. But if you wait until school starts to list because you're like, all right, we had the summer, now we're ready to move, you're going to miss all those buyers. But they wouldn't know that unless you ask the question and we're able to educate them on the fact that, hey, even if you're looking to do end of summer, totally get it. Nobody is going to make you move before your kids are done with this last summer in Maine. We still should do these things before that to make sure you don't miss the buyers trying to come in before school starts.
Trevor, go ahead. You got your hand up.
How about offering a pop by CMA? Say, your house might be worth more than you think or less than you think. Probably a good idea to know now before you decide to get ready to sell.
Yeah, of course, home value is always a great tool. I would caution you a little bit about the fact that sellers see that as a commitment. So if you go right to that on someone who has things to work out versus going to the things that you can help them work out, you might get more resistance because they feel like it's a commitment. Well, let me just come tell you what it's worth. That's like, all right, well, then that means we're selling or we're selling now. Obviously, that's a part of what you need to do. Obviously, they need to know what it's worth. Obviously, getting that information before the market turns, all important. But be careful, that's not the only thing you offer to people. It can give you resistance.
Okay.
It could also put you in a corner.
Yep.
Sure, you can do a CMA prior to walking into someone's house. Then you walk in the house, you're like, oh crap, this is not what it's not in good condition. It needs X, Y, and Z. And you also don't know the seller's motivation. If they're foreclosing, that number might not matter as much. They want it done quickly and they're willing to take a cut. But if it's their dream home that they built and customized every little inch and they think their house is worth $1 million and you walk in there with an actual data-driven CMA, you're going to shoot yourself in the foot. So just be careful walking into a house with a preconceived perception of value.
And another thing is, it paints you into a corner in terms of what you can do. Just by saying, I'll tell you what your home is worth. Yeah, I want to be viewed as a listing agent. That is eventually how I want to be viewed and most of what I want to do. However, with any given person, I can help them in a lot of other ways than just listing. So I want to be able to honestly walk into a listing launch appointment and say to somebody at the end of it, I don't know, John, I think a refinance makes most sense for you. And if I've already told them like, we're going to sell and this is what's happening, I'm not really listening to the fact that maybe a refinance is what's best for John. I mean, honestly, you guys are going, you're moving up and you're trying to move here. And that market is actually more expensive than this market right now. And you might lose more money in the sale. You guys had an interest rate of 5% from 5 years ago. If you refinance right now, and you lock in that money and you lock in that rate, and we wait for change to change a little bit, then we can look at selling maybe a little bit down the road, right? If that's the real answer for him, then that's what we're going to talk about. Whatever's going to be best for that client. So talk to me about C people.
Can I ask one question before we get into that?
Sure, Arthur.
Now you said like somebody it's 15 to 60 days out, you make that initial phone call and say, maybe we ought to get together and talk now.
Yep.
What about in this case, you're going to meet them the first time? Should you actually try and get the agency agreement then, or say wait 30 days or something if you're more, so you can get an exclusive is what I'm getting at.
Yes. So it depends on the call that leads up to the appointment. And we're going to get into, I think in a bit here, a specific script about that pre-qualification. And I did put it in the chat. But if you go through that script, you're going to know how ready that person is, if listing is even the answer for them, and if you're showing up to get a listing agreement signed, but it's just not going to happen for 6 months, right? Or for 3 months. Versus, okay, we're just talking about what's the next best move for you, right? You're not going to sign a listing if that person, or bring a listing agreement if that person doesn't even, that's not their plan, or you don't even know that that's their plan. If the person has a plan to list and there is a specific time constraint and we've established it, but we already know the plan and we already know what's going to happen, yeah, I'm trying to sign a listing agreement 60 days out. But that's not my only objective, and it's not my number one objective. Anything else on that one?
I have a question.
Yes.
Sorry. So where's the sweet spot? What is the best time frame for sellers?
The day you meet them?
No, if you meet somebody and you say, hey, or they say, I'm thinking about listing my house, not really sure, kind of want to see what the economy does. And I say, okay, well, you want to have as much time as possible because we want to be able to go through things. Like, do you want as long as possible? Do you want 60 days? Is 3 weeks best? Obviously, it depends on if they need to.
This, Courtney, it is whenever you meet them, you need to be a part of the conversation from there on, even if it's a 5-year conversation. Like when you meet people, you need to become in their life the little real estate person on their shoulder. That's like, oh, geez, you're going to do that porch. Make sure you get it permitted. They're not listing tomorrow. They're not listing next year. They're not listing in 3 years. But put it on a ledger board and make sure it's you are literally, you at that point have just consulted them for a sale 5 years later. Does that make sense? So there's no, in terms of like getting on the market, I can't do, like if I'm doing a CMA for someone that's, I know they're not listing for 3 months, I'm definitely going to say like, we're going to have to re-examine this before we list. The market changes weekly, daily. If you're talking about like that component, but in terms of being in relationship with people and preparing them for the eventual real estate action, there is no sweet spot. It's whenever you meet them and what they need then. And you need to find what it is that you can bring to the table by having open conversation with them and having them view you as someone that like they randomly call. Like I've had friends this year call me 3 different times to be like, all right, I'm thinking about selling. What do you think? I give them a little bit of information. No, I'm not gonna do it. That's fine. The same person 2 more times. I met with them. I don't think that they're ready. They don't know where to go, but it's like hard for them to watch the market and see what everyone's making and feel like they're not in on it. Right? But they're not, this person doesn't have a place to go. They don't need to change. And so cashing in on the market to then be like, all right, I'm going to make a lateral move for them as they've decided doesn't make sense for them right now. Did I answer your question? Kind of? Not really.
No, it did. Yes, I just have you muted, or I have me muted.
Any other questions related to Courtney's question? Jewel, what is a C seller? Mike with a beard. What's a C seller?
C seller is able, ready, and willing to do business in the next 61 days or more. So over 2 months. You should put them in the database and call them monthly.
Got it. So put them in the database and call them monthly.
Yep.
What does that mean to you, Arthur?
Well, I would just call and do a little follow-up and say, hey, are you still thinking about selling your house? And if you are, how soon? And if you wait for their answer and decide whether, maybe press on that, okay, if you're willing to sell it in a couple of months, maybe we should get together now and start discussing the plans to do that.
Do you know what their address is?
Well, I'm assuming if you already know that you've already got the information that they're willing in 2 months, that you would have it in your database, I would hope.
Yeah, so when people tell me that they're 61 days or more away from selling, an alarm goes off in my head, I might mess this up. And because of that, I use command and reminders even more with that than anything else. And I don't just want to have them on a drip. I don't just want to be like, here's the neighborhood news for your neighborhood for the next 3 months or 6 months or 9 months or whatever. But I want to have a reminder to myself of, all right, John lives in this neighborhood in Westbrook, and I'm randomly going to send John a listing that came on. Did you see this one? That's it. Are you guys ready to sell? Do you want to reprice it? Did you see this one? Text them a listing that came on across the street from them. Did you see this one? And then move on. And then John might be like, yeah, I can't believe what they listed it on, or what do you think it's going to sell for, or whatever conversation we have. And then we move on. And then again, a little while later, I might say like, oh, it closed. This is what happened, right? You are becoming their real estate contact in that area, but you need to know enough about them to do that and do it effectively. And you need to have something in command or your CM, your client management system to make you do it. I'm not going to automatically remember to look up some random neighborhood in Westbrook to see what's sold and what I could talk to John about. I'm going to set a reminder for myself that says, look up market data for John. And then I'm gonna look it up and be like, oh yeah, last week that sold. Boom, send it off to John. Does that make sense?
Yes.
What is the trap?
Trap.
Someone says to you 61 days or more.
You forget about them.
Yeah, I don't know what I'm supposed to do next. We don't have a date, so to speak. We don't have a plan. And when you don't have a plan,
Michael, let's do a little role play. We've talked about the types of buyers, the questions.
yep.
I see that we have 42 participants, but I want to take a quick poll here. Those who are not on the screen, are you in a place that you can participate in a breakout room? Because if you are not, the breakout rooms get very difficult to do because nobody shows up. So we can either break it out into rooms or we can do it here in the general session. So if you are not on screen right now and can participate, would you mind just turning your screen on so we can see you? And that way we know how many are actually able to actively participate in a role play. Hi, everyone. There we go. I got a couple new people on. Okay.
There they come.
Yeah. Okay, great. Yeah, and no apologies necessary. We understand, that sometimes you can't, and thank you for joining us and at least listening, and hopefully some of this sticks. So we're going to do, right, Michael, I think that's the next slide, go into a breakout room and do some of these seller role play. Let's give everyone a specific example to role play.
Yep. I'm trying to pull up that script. You have that in front of you, Mike?
Let's see. No. Let's see. Yes. All right. Let's just give them a situation. Okay. So let's say you worked an open house. All right. And Michael Thomas, can you set up the breakouts? I think what we should do is, I know this is going to be a little different, but let's do 3 breakout rooms where each Michael is in a breakout room. Okay. So each breakout room has one of us at it. And okay. Thank you, Trevor. Thumbs up from Trevor. So break it out into 3, set that up, Michael, if you can. Let me know if you need help. But here's the situation, and we'll break out, since we'll have a trainer in each room, it will be helpful, and we can guide the conversation. After breakouts, I think we're going to take a quick break too. So let's focus on this and dive deep into this real quick. But basically, let's take this example. You worked an open house as a buyer agent for an agent in your office. You worked this open house, and buyers came through, whatever. But then you took the next step and you did a little circle prospecting, okay? You had 50 people through that open house. Through your conversations with the listing agent, you know that there were 14 offers, okay? And you said, you know what? I'm gonna walk this neighborhood, I'm gonna knock on these doors and say, hey, did you know your neighbor listed at this price and had 14 offers? That means there are 13 people who didn't get this house looking in your neighborhood. All right. And let's role play that, not only to find out if they're a seller or not. So there's that script, the door knock script. And then, yes, actually, I have been thinking about it. So we set the appointment and we ask some of these qualifying questions. Yeah.
Figure out if they're an A, B, or C seller.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
And if they're not, still get them in your database and figure out what you're going to do with them next.
All right, Michael Thomas, you ready to?
I got them pretty much good here, Michael. The only problem is, for some reason, I can't assign Michael Hamilton to a room here.
Because you're not the host. Okay.
I can break out all the rooms except for him if he can jump into a room if I just tell him which one to jump into.
Yeah. Give him a number, and then I think he can jump in directly.
Is
yes.
that possible? Okay, because I got you in room 1.
Okay.
If he wants to do room, and I don't have me either on this list. Oh. Yeah, it doesn't have me on this list either. You're in room 1, so if me or Michael can do room 2 or 3.
Okay, let's see what happens. There's a little technical thing here. Let's see what happens. Break them out, and then Michael make sure try and get into another room. Okay.
All right, so I opened them up. Oh, and I can pick a room to join. Michael, are you there, Hamilton?
Yeah.
Okay, so if you join room, yeah, I'm gonna join room 2, you join room 3, okay?
I think I did. Yep.
And then
Hey, Arthur, did you get your call yesterday?
Actually, I did, but they had a little problem with the bank. They just have to bring some more information, but they definitely told me they're going with me. And my second phone call, same thing. It's a younger girl, and she's just waiting for her letter or the results. She said she should know within the next week, but she also committed me to me too. So that's
Awesome. Congratulations.
two in the loop right now. Yeah, I'm pretty happy about that.
Get them set up on their searches.
All right, with that.
What's that?
Get them set up on their searches on MLS or whatever search engine you're using for the KW app search.
How are we doing, everybody? That was a nice long script session. I think both Michael and I were waiting for the other one to come back until we finally both texted each other. So give me the number one reason you are not doing this right now.
Doing the door knocking.
The thing you just practiced, why haven't you done that 2 times this week?
Didn't even think of it.
Okay, that's a good one. What else?
Confidence.
Yep. How do you think that you can help yourself with that?
Practice.
Yep.
I don't know about you guys, but it's been downpouring here.
Yeah, my internet's going in and out because of it.
Do you have a script partner?
Who are you talking to?
I'm talking to the person who said confidence was an issue. Lauren.
I do not. I actually don't do, I'm better in the heat of the moment actually than I am with script practice because that's when I get in my head most.
So I would say when people say script, there is a misconception that you're then running a pre-canned script, which makes sense because we call it script practice. It starts with that 2 sentences we did, and it should look just like what we did in the room. And when you and your partner throw it back and forth, different scenarios. So once you say the 2 sentences of have you thought about selling, that's the end of the script. The rest is what's a good follow-up question. If someone says something about the kids, what's a good response to that? And have them challenge you like I challenge you guys. So, hey, that was awesome. Let you finish your thought process and be like, all right, but I threw this at you and you didn't follow it. Or I felt like you shut me down here. That's what script practice is. Not like repeating the same couple of sentences and ending it. It's having conversations based off a script. And how do the conversations go? How do we become more comfortable in them so that when somebody says to you, yeah, I thought about it, but I need to get at least $100,000 more of those people. What is the response to someone like that? You've had the conversation already. You've worked it out. You've played it with somebody. You should be doing that every week with somebody that challenges you and you trust, and you're able to throw yourself out there and able to mess up. And most importantly, you're both honest with each other. Like, don't just get on the phone for 15 minutes, read the thing back and forth, challenge each other.
Yeah. I just started doing for sale by owner scripts with an agent yesterday, and it's my first time ever role playing, and he's seasoned, so he did have those objections, and then after the conversation we talked about how to overcome them and what went well and what went wrong. So that's been very helpful, and we plan to do it on a weekly basis now.
Awesome work. Mike, what do you think about a break?
Yeah, let's take a break. Yep.
So we'll take a 10-minute break because we've only got about another hour after that. So let's do a 10-minute break. Go grab some whatever you need, and then come back and we'll accelerate through the end of this thing.
Cool. See y'all.
Does anyone have any questions about what we just did before we get back into the work?
I remember my question from earlier.
Perfect.
So when we go to set up that appointment after the door knocking and saying that we're going to come back and have that appointment, in that appointment, is that when you're doing the CMA with them?
It depends on what their motivation is and what their expectations are. If that person is looking to be an A kind of seller, yeah, for sure, you're coming back with a price range, which they're then, depending on your style, going to nail down in that first appointment, or you might have a follow-up appointment. Some people do like a one-step listing appointment, some people do it two, right? If that person is in that middle range, it might be more of a conversation like we talked about of like what's going to happen in the next 60 days. And as we get, and you might give like an even wider range of like, all right, so as we know, your neighbor's house just did this, and we could think about that, but we're going to have to re-examine that a little bit closer to our list date, right? Okay. And if you're even further out, it might just be like, what information do you need to help you make decisions over the next couple, year or couple of years? Because that's what you want to bring to them. Is it about where they're going? Is it about, do they want to go to condos or single family homes next? Is it about, do they want to move to Florida or Texas, or evidently Georgia is the new Florida? That was in the news today. That was the #1 retirement place, no longer Florida. What is it that you can help them research to be on their team to figure out what's next for them? And that would be what you bring back to a C seller. Sometimes it's price, sometimes it's not. It's not like price. Telling someone what their home is worth if their plan is 3 years from now. All right, your home is worth this now. In 3 years, I have no idea what it'll be worth, right?
Right. And then if they're an A in the A category, in order to get a more accurate CMA, do we ask to do a quick preview of the home, or is that something that should come in that next appointment with that wide range of CMA?
No, I think if you're at the door and you just knocked, you're not asking to go into that home right then. I would say when you come back, and we'll talk about this next, that's one of the first things you do when you come back, and you set that expectation of like, so I'm going to take a look around the home and get some information to help me get an accurate picture of the home, and then we'll sit down and we'll discuss whatever it is.
Okay, makes
that
sense.
way when they come back, they're ready for that, and they're not like, oh man, I don't want to make them uncomfortable.
Yeah.
All right, so we are back. Hopefully most everyone's back. The next thing I wanted to talk about was, let's imagine that whatever lead generation conversation you had went super well, and you are now looking at a listing appointment. You're looking to either set one up or you already have one set up. You want to now pre-qualify that buyer. And you should be doing it with some sort of questionnaire or script. So here's the one that we put in the chat. You guys can see my screen still, right? Yes, no?
No.
Yes.
Oh.
Yes, you can see my screen. There it is.
Oh,
so
you're not sharing anything right now.
We cannot see your screen, Michael.
Perfect.
There you go. There you go. Good.
There we go. So here is the pre-listing questionnaire. I use one similar to this, but whether you use this exact one or you edit it, you need to have one that you actually use and actually get through before you go on an appointment. So how did you hear about me? Would be important, because if someone referred them to you, or if they're coming through a specific service, there might be an expectation about how you might perform, right? And if someone referred them, you definitely want an opportunity to call that person and thank them and let them know how it went, right? So that's an important question. Where are you moving? You might have already covered this, but if you haven't, you definitely need to know where they're going and what sort of logistics are involved with that. What's motivating you to move there? Again, things that you might have in the first conversation gone over. If you haven't, make sure you know, like, hey, how bad do you need to move and when do you need to be there, right? This is an important question because some people don't realize just how fast this can happen. So if your home were to sell in the next 30 days, would that pose a problem for you? If they say yes, you really need to drum down to what those are and make sure you're aligning with it. If they say no, then there's no reason we shouldn't be listing that house within a week, right? What would happen if your home did not sell? This is really important for you to know now so that later you can call back on it when they want to be ridiculous about price. Okay? Don't skip that question, even if you think like, we're definitely going to sell this house. Why would I say that to them? You're not going to sell it if it's overpriced, and you need to know why they don't want to not sell it, right? How much do you want to list your home for? Very important. Not because it's going to affect your price at all. You should put that number away and never think about it again when you're doing your preparation, because what they want is irrelevant. But it's important for you to know in terms of preparing for the appointment and the fact that you may or may not know you're going to get objections. In one of ours, we had an open house that they were under contract for 425, and the guy they were knocking wanted 800. There's very few neighbors I know where you're going to have that kind of spread. So I'm pretty much prepped for that guy wants too much for his house. And I'm going to have all my objections to an overpriced house ready for that guy in details on each one. And that's going to affect my presentation. So you need to know how much they want to list their home for and if it is out of line with what you know. However, what are you not going to do based on that number? Lauren, what are we not going to do when someone tells us the price they want to list their house for?
Oh, then we can do it.
Agree.
Change our perception or the market's perception at all. Taking an overpriced listing, especially in this market, does not help anybody. Oh, no, says Michael. So how much do you owe on the property? Another is, how much?
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
How about if, let's say a property's overpriced, we can do this for 2 weeks. And then, if we've had minimal showings and no offers, the price drops to X.
So that is a technique that some people will use and historically might have been effective. I would argue that in this current market, you are dead in the water.
Yeah,
I would do almost anything to avoid well, in 2 weeks, let's see what happens, and we'll agree to like if 2 weeks, it's too late. If you have not been under contract in 2 weeks, the reduction required would be detrimental to the seller, and you have done them a disservice.
Right. And like in our market, Michael, I'm sure you'll agree, like it would almost be more beneficial to say, let's not wait the 2 weeks. We're going to price it lower like that, because we're seeing a lot of properties going multiple offers, meaning they're going 20 to 30,000 over, sometimes even more. So it's actually more beneficial to underprice or price right at the money, get more interest in the property, and then assume that you're going to get that $20,000 to $30,000 over. If you have a nice house in the right neighborhood and so forth, then you're almost automatically going to get more.
Yeah, and we'll talk about that. I'm going to do a little brief listing presentation for you after this, which the most important part of the presentation that I need to get out is pricing to the people and why. So we'll cover that a little bit more. So how much do you own the property? Important because most people want to know what their net is, and it would be nice, even though usually the disclaimer of like, things might change a little bit, but this is an estimate of what you might net. So I will usually try to show up with some sort of net sheet for a seller, which means after your payoffs, after commissions, after title work, after transfer tax, and any other liens, what's the check that you can hope to get at closing if we sell at this price? Does that make sense? Do you have any questions? I'm going to send you an information packet. Will you take a couple of minutes to review it before we meet? So I don't do this. And the reason I don't do it is because I like to gauge people's reaction to stuff in person and have a chance to deal with it. and I found historically that if I send stuff ahead of time, people sometimes cancel appointments or people draw their own conclusions, and I'm not there to let them know my response to what they're thinking about. But if you're planning on doing that, definitely ask that question. Do you have any questions before we meet? Obviously, that again is preparing for making sure you're meeting their needs. Will all the decision makers be there? This is a must ask question. And it also helps you infer like the situation. Sometimes the situation is awkward or unfortunate, and that's a good place to discover that. You don't want to show up at a listing presentation with a wife that you met with when the husband is who she's divorcing has someone else coming the next day and neither of them know about it, right? I'm looking for confirm the appointment. I'm looking forward to meeting you on Wednesday at 5 p.m. So once you've done all this, you will now be prepared to actually make this person a listing presentation. Okay, so a lot of people, myself included, struggle with getting together the perfect listing presentation. And what does that include and what should be on it? And how am I going to do it? And do I have to memorize it? And what's going to happen? And it's super overwhelming. I would say that there is some essential information that a listing presentation has on it. And other than that, the stuff you need to come forward with changes based on the seller, and it changes based on the house. So I have a listing presentation that has a pricing strategy conversation, some marketing conversation in there, and the process in there. And then other things I might stick in based on who I'm talking to and who I know I'm meeting with. Does that make sense? Yes, no, okay.
Yep.
So I call this a listing launch guide, and I changed that language specifically for myself because I felt pressure trying to sell myself to people versus trying to tell people, instruct people, and make sure I got the information I needed at the appointment. And when I shift that focus for myself, I found that my success rate went way up. Does that ring true for anyone, or do you understand that?
Repeat that last part, Michael, quickly.
So everyone calls it a listing presentation,
Right.
which puts the pressure, and you can call it whatever you want. I'm just giving you my mentality of why I changed it. That puts the pressure on you of selling yourself to a seller. And that's usually the feeling you come in with. So for me, when I go to a listing appointment, I'm actually trying to tell them and educate them on the process. And I'm trying to make sure I have the information I'm going to need to market it. And that is my focus.
So what I like about this, Michael, is that you've changed the mindset around the presentation, right? A listing presentation is someone there making a presentation, explain and selling yourself, right? Where a listing launch guide is you've almost assumed you already have the listing, and this is the first step in getting your home sold. So, and this is what I'm going to do for you. So you're not presenting anything. Nope. This is the first step in getting your house sold. Welcome to the, we're going to launch your listing, and this is the first step. I love it. I love it.
And also, so when I go to a listing launch appointment, I'm going to bring with me, where's my camera? I don't know, where's my cell phone?
Yep, you're good.
I'm going to bring this 1-page sheet that we made, which is all the information I need to make sure I get. What are their birthdays? What's their anniversary? Are we going to put a lockbox? Do they have any things they want to know about showings or any restrictions? When do they want to go on? Are we doing photos? Are we doing drone? Are we doing a 3D tour? Does anything need to be done before we go on the market? And then after that, in the packet, we have disclosures. And after that, in the packet, we have the MLS sheet. And the first thing I'm going to do when I go in the appointment is give them this, what you're looking at on the screen. And then I'm going to go fill this stuff out. and I'm going to ask them questions about their home. And it's going to put me in the position of, it's already assumed I'm listing this house. And even if I'm not, I'm going to need this info to have an accurate picture of your home. So I'm going to get as much of this as I can down. And then we're going to sit down and we're going to talk about it. And then the only thing that I really need to nail with them is price. That's the only thing that I'm going to be like, look, I need to make sure you understand this. I need to make sure you understand why we price a certain way and why we're going to price this way on your home. So when I walk in the house, I will literally put this down and say, hey, this is some information about our team. I'm going to leave it with you. Feel free to look through. In the meantime, if it's okay with you, I'm going to walk around the house and collect some information that I'm going to need to market the home if you decide you want to list this home, right? Then after we do that, we'll talk a little bit about what you would like out of selling the home. And then we're going to talk about the pricing and how we plan to market this specific home. Does that work for you? Put this down. I fill out the disclosures to the best of my ability. I fill out the MLS sheet to the best of my ability. And then I come back and we sit down. And then I am going to ask them some version of these questions. You guys can see my screen, right?
Mm-hmm.
Before I go forever. Again, we probably talked about these things, but either reiterating answers you already have or asking the questions in case you missed them. You know, why do you want to move? And in a perfect world, what would the sale of this home look like for you? You need to ask that question. Do they want to have 1 million showings? It might, like some people like are bragging on Facebook about 60 people went through their home over the weekend. Other people are reading that and it's a nightmare to them. What would a perfect scenario of selling your home look like to you? Get the answer and make sure you reflect the fact that you can hopefully accomplish that. If the perfect scenario is, look, I just want to get $400,000 and I want to be here for 90 days and I want to know what's happening. Maybe we do a cash sale on our Facebook page internally with Keller Williams. And if someone will give you that amount, we never even go on market. The whole rest of this presentation just became irrelevant. We're not even going to talk about marketing. We're not even going to talk about price. If we reached agreement right there, if I think your house is worth 400K, and I'm pretty sure there's at least 5 agents on our KW agent page that could bring me a $400,000 offer of cash and let her stay for 90 days. Let's see what happens there, right? So you need to see what does perfect look like to them. And then obviously follow-up questions about that. How can I make that happen for you? Why is it important to you? And usually I've kind of already asked this while I was going through the disclosures. I might go through and I see that there's kind of a new bathroom and I'm like, did you guys do this? Did you do permits for it? Stuff like that. So I've usually asked about improvements already. If I haven't noticed anything or they sort of rush me through, I might still ask the question of like, are there any improvements about your home that I should know about? And then when I say, what do you love about it? I specifically say, often when we list a property, we will do things that we love about the home. And I like to know what the seller liked about the home because a lot of times it's on that list, the things they loved about the home, and it helps us market the home, right? And then we get into a very important conversation, which is that the price has to be right on marketing the home. So I sit down with them and I say, usually they've looked at this and they might have an idea of what their home is worth, and they might respond to what they saw on my CMA as their range. And I'm already gauging, like, are they just gonna list? Sometimes you don't even have to have the pricing conversation. You put down a CMA in front of them. It said 215 at the bottom, 245. They literally read it. They actually got to this page. They actually understood pricing strategy, and they said, so it sounds like 215. Don't go ahead and do this whole thing with them. Don't argue price with them. List the home, sign a listing agreement, and go. Other times you walk in, they're like, so Sally just sold for 245, and I really think I want to do 245. She got 20 over. Maybe we could go 20 over too. So where did she list? So then that's when you get into the pricing conversation. So the most important thing that I can tell a seller is that they do not want to be on the market right now for a long period of time. And every day that they are on the market, beyond a week, in my market, their home is losing value. It's literally just like, why is your home not sold? And what is wrong with it? And that is the question that buyers are going to start to ask of that home and those sellers and that listing agent. What's going on? You know, what response have you guys gotten? And the mentality of those buyers will now be, how much can I get off of the price? How low can I get this seller to go? Because obviously nobody wants this home. Versus if you price well, you have a short timeline on the market, then you get them to look at each other, the buyers, and say, how much do we have to pay to get this home? You want them fighting and climbing over each other to get your home. You don't want them looking at you and saying, how little can I offer this seller? And you cannot fake that process. So this conversation could change tomorrow. That's a really important thing to realize about real estate. You don't learn a script or a conversation and it's done, right? This conversation about pricing is true right now in the greater Portland market. If the market shifts, I'm not going to be able to say to somebody, you know, you can't underprice a home. If I'm listing a $4 million listing where there's only one, I'm not going to say to people, you know, you can't underprice a home. That's not true. You can't underprice a $4 million island home because there's only one of them. And if you price it $3 million, no one's going to offer you $4 million if there's only 2 buyers out there, right? If you're in a market with a lot of buyers and in a market with a lot of competition, it's very hard to underprice a home. Does that make sense? Does it make sense that there is no being done knowing how to do what we do? You could be doing this for 15 years. You could go away for 6 months and you can come back and be completely ignorant of how you're supposed to be doing what you're doing. You need to reinvest in the market and know what's going on. That is something that can work to your advantage, by the way, as most of you being young agents, which is there are some people out there that are disconnected from the market. They're disconnected from how you market. They're disconnected from the buyers out there. And your advantage and what you can say to sellers is, right now, this is what's going on, and I'm really connected to what's going on. Anyway, back to pricing. So, sure you've heard this before. This little pyramid shows us that when you price your home on the market or the market value, you're going to draw in about 60% of the market. If you price above that, the amount of people who are interested in the home is going to reduce the more you are above the perceived market value of the home. So a strategy that a lot of sellers have is, let's leave room for negotiation. You know, well, we'll start up here, and if we have to come down to where I actually should be, that's okay. I want to leave room for that. What ends up actually happening is you start up here, you're on the market too long, and you end up down here below the market because you sat on the market and it became apparent the desire for your home is not there. Another thing that I say to sellers a lot is, buyers know the market. They are more invested in the market than anybody else. They are on there constantly on Zillow, on Realtor.com, on Redfin, looking at homes. And when something comes on the market that is high, it is a personal insult to them. And I literally can't even convince them to set up a showing. That's overpriced. I mean, it's the prices are already super high and it's already a challenge for me. And then this person thinks they're going to get that. They're offended by the price. So it's not like, oh, they'll come in and offer us where it should be. They're literally just like, no, I won't even see it. I'm upset by the fact that they're doing that to us when we're already overpaying in this market, right? So don't have buyers have that reaction to you. Instead, have buyers have the reaction of, that's a really good price for this home. I mean, I can't believe that they're priced there. Obviously, a ton of people are going to want this. And then ask the realtor, how much do I have to offer? An example I often give, so we have a place, a city here, which is Sanford. And the Sanford market is considerably below the Portland market. It's probably like a median income area. And I had some first-time home buyers look at a place in Sanford. And I call them after the showing and I'm like, you know, what are you guys thinking? And they're, well, we want to make an offer. All right, great. I think it was listed at around 215. And they're like, all right, yeah, we want to make an offer. We were thinking we'd start at 200. We've already, by the way, had the conversation of what's going on in the market. We've already had the conversation of that if they like a home, they're going to have to be aggressive. For some reason, their response to me is, I like this home and I want to offer 200 on 215. Okay, well, let me call the listing agent and see what's going on with the home. And I'm just going to subtly feel out if they have any offers, any timelines we should be aware of, and I'll get back to you guys. Cool. Call the listing agent. Hey, we have 5 offers. They're actually due today. I don't even call them back. I text them. They have 5 offers. Offers are due by 5 p.m. today. They come back to me. They want to offer 245. That shift happened with a text message of the knowledge that other people wanted the thing they wanted and they were going to lose out on it. I didn't have to do some convincing as a buyer's agent to make them do that. And the seller didn't have to do any convincing about the fact that they should offer 245. The knowledge that other people were in line and multiple other people were in line shifted their perception of value $45,000 in a text message. That is what people want on their home. So I give specific examples in my listing presentation of this, just in case people aren't there. I talk about real appointments with people I really met with, and I came in the door and they kind of told me where they wanted to be. This person was thinking, hey, $299 sounds reasonable. I know you guys are gonna think I'm crazy. I think we should price it at $275. We got $317, right? This person had built this house less than a year ago. They really wanted $650, which was about what they paid for it. And I was like, look, I know this sounds crazy. I want you guys to list it for less than you literally just built it for. $725 sold price, right? It goes on. Then I pull up and you're gonna probably have to use office listings for this. That's okay. I pull up my sales from the last year and I say, hey, look what we did. We listed at 440, we closed at 495. We listed at 275, we closed. It's example after example. This is not theoretical stuff. If you're talking to someone who thinks they know better and will leave room for negotiation, will list high and will come down. And then I have a slide for a couple of multis with an investor I work with who's stubborn as possibly can be, who, after seeing all this is still just like, well, I still think I want to start here. And I show them the last 2 that we sold with him and how they slid way below market value after sitting on the market for 60 days, right? My average list to sale price is well below 100%. But this guy, the only one who brought me below 112% of list, the only one, this is the strategy he used. Do you want to be like that? Do you want to list like that? Because when I do it the way that I have found to work, my sellers are getting 112% of their list price. Does that make sense? Any questions?
Do you think the market's going to stay like that for a while? And
asking me as
when
an
that
agent,
does shift, what do we do?
So if a seller asked me that question, I would say, I certainly think there are a lot of financial indicators to say that the market is going to turn. I don't have a crystal ball. I can't tell you for sure that's going to happen. I can tell you right now, there's a frenzy. Right now, there's a frothy market, and I would take advantage of it. I think that there's a really good chance that it's going to turn, and I certainly wouldn't wait. If you're asking me as an agent, the answer is pretty similar. I honestly can't believe it hasn't already turned. The number of and as an agent, I would say you got to be really careful predicting the future because we don't know what very large institutions, including the federal government, are going to do what they haven't ever done before. You got more than 20% of people in forbearance right now. By all rights, those people should end up in some sort of foreclosure because they can't handle what's going to come. But there's nothing to say that they're not all just going to get forgiven. So how do we predict what's going to happen with that segment of the market? We can't, because Biden and his administration could forgive that. Biden and his administration could continue to extend an eviction moratorium. All of these things, like, we can't know what's going to happen. We can't know what the Fed is going to do. We can know what it should do and what it historically has done, and that would make sense. And the thing that would make sense is that we're seeing a massive correction. in the next 6 months. But I'm very careful not to say, we're gonna have a correction coming in the next 6 months. I couldn't.
I would also add to that, Michael, that yes, all that is true. We can't predict the future, but the one thing, the indicator that is a fact is we still have an inventory problem, and that's not changing anytime soon. So it's still a supply and demand problem, huge demand, at least here in Portland, and a very small supply, right? Some of these foreclosures and forbearances, yeah, that'll pump up the inventory, but those are months, a little bit more months in the future. But ultimately, supply and demand drives a lot of this.
Yeah, and especially when talking to buyers, I'm really careful to future cast that that's going to happen, because they could end up waiting for that for years. It's so crazy right now, and I just think I want to wait for the market to cool down. People are overpaying, and I made this mistake, and my buyers ignored me. Thank goodness. In 2019, I helped some buyers buy a multifamily property in Biddeford, right? And they'd gone around, they'd offered a couple, and they made a tremendous offer on this duplex that I thought was kind of irresponsible, to be honest. And I was like, guys, I just want you to know that if we do this and you get it, it's going to be like, you can't come back to me a year from now or 2 years from now and be like, hey, can we sell this thing? I would be shocked if you walk away unscathed. No, we're going to be fine. We'll stay in it or rent it. It's going to be totally fine. Of course, you can see where this is going. They bought it overpriced from my perspective of the market in 2019. There's no way we can keep doing this thing. It's unsustainable. The beginning of 2020, they come to me, hey, we're going to list this property. What do you think it's going to be worth? They made $80,000 when they sold that property, which I thought was overpriced when they bought it. And if they sold it today, they probably would have made another 50 from when they sold it 6 months ago.
I had an offer in on that property. Didn't get it.
I remember that. It was a really great.
Yeah. We had a couple good conversations, Michael. We were close. But no, that's the same script I have for buyers. I know a lot of you might be working with mostly buyers at this point. People are like, should I buy now? And I know this is now totally off what we're supposed to be talking about, but I add to that. I say this very similar thing. And I say, listen, so what if you're overpaying today? Do you, for the next, and again, if you promise me you don't want to resell this thing in 1 or 2 years, because you're not likely to make a huge amount of money. It might be a push, but if you're planning to be here for a while, it's a good investment, because if you buy now versus waiting 2 years from now, think about all that equity you have built, right? So there's the equity that you're building in the property. You're no longer paying rent to somebody else, and you're buying into a lifestyle. This is a neighborhood you want to be in. This is, whatever it is. What is their motivation, right? Is it a school district or whatever it is? It's a lifestyle that you're going to be in, and happiness counts for something. So even if you're overpaying, quote unquote, overpaying today, in the long run, being a homeowner for 2 more years rather than waiting 2 years is always worth it. So that's something I say to my buyers who are like, should I wait? Well, you can have fun paying the rent for 2 more years, or pay your own mortgage for the next 2 years.
So after we talk about pricing, I think a thing that is important is, hey, what is the amount of time that you're on the market? Factor number 1. What is the price going to be? And then how are you going to market the home? So this part of your presentation is going to be different for everybody. And I would say, make sure that you are able to speak about it. So if this is your very first listing presentation and you're planning on taking professional photographs and you're planning on pushing it through command, then you're going to say, we do professional photography, some pretty pictures, and we do targeted marketing through social media, right? And your marketing plan has to be on there. I honestly do not spend a huge amount of time talking about this with somebody. I think that you only can disappoint them. Either they see you and what you talk about and they want to work with you, or they're just waiting for you to say something that they knew that you didn't know, and you're setting yourself up there. After we talk about pricing, And after we talk a little bit about marketing strategy, I say, so what you can expect is hopefully today, if you decide you want to get the house on the market, we're going to agree to work together. We're going to look at a price in the range that we talked about. And then as we talked about earlier, you know, I think that it would be worthwhile to clear out this space over here. And I think it'd be worthwhile if we rearrange the living room over here, whatever that list of thing is I already made. And then I say, and then we're going to be ready to take photography on your property. And then again, based on that sheet that I took, which was like, what am I doing here and when, I'm going to say, so do you think we can be ready for pictures by Tuesday? Right? And if so, I can look at getting somebody in here and we talk about when we're going to be doing pictures. We're just talking about process here. And I say, okay, great. So we'll do the pictures on Tuesday. We'll probably be on market by Thursday. Again, this is specific to my market, but my market is going to say I'm going to be on the market a week or less. And I'm going to specifically communicate to the public that I'm going to be on the market a week or less. So what you guys can expect is that by Wednesday, we're going to be reviewing offers. Make sure you set aside some time on Wednesday night to go through that. We will either sit down in person or in Zoom, and I'll prep a spreadsheet for you of the offers that came in. I want you to know that we're going to talk about not just the price, but other factors of the offer that are important. What is the financing like? Do they have inspections? Do they not have inspections? Do they have an appraisal waiver? Are they able to cover a shortfall in appraisal? Is this buyer working with an experienced agent? If not, do I know who the agent is? Do I know who the lender is? All of these things will end up being things that we discuss. And hopefully we're going to get them all on the same page. We have a person with a great agent and the highest offer and no inspections and an appraisal waiver or a cash offer all on one piece of paper. If not, we're going to go with the one that has the most factors probably that you think are important. And then I give them a chance to ask questions about that. I give them a chance to, well, what do you mean by an appraisal waiver? What do you mean by an appraisal shortfall coverage? Like whatever thing they maybe didn't know what I'm talking about, we talk about it. Because I don't want, first of all, I want them to know that I know how to negotiate and get things done and get them more money. And I don't want them to be it's completely foreign to them on offer presentation day, right? Then after I say that, I say, so after we do the pictures, the day leading up to the market, we're going to do some pre-marketing stuff internally. Then we'll do a just listed campaign. It's going to be on Facebook and Instagram and Google. It's also going to go out into the MLS and all of the your Zillow, your Realtor.com. You should expect that a lot of showing requests will come in that week. It'll be busy. So if there are any restrictions you guys have about that, let me know now so that we can put that out there when we list the home. And then I say, so once we have received the offers and we talk about it, we may or may not go back to some of the offers and see if we can improve them a little bit. And then you guys will choose the one that you want to work with. And at the time we're doing that, we'll probably try to also negotiate a backup offer. So our top couple of people, I'll also be asking them, just so I know, are you guys open to a backup offer, right? And then hopefully that night, we're going to put a first position offer and a backup offer in place. You guys will sign. Depending on what kind of financing you're using, you can expect that this contract is going to be either 45 days or less. Unless, of course, they've asked for something specific about staying there or being there longer. But that's what they could expect. If it's cash, we could be out of this in as little as 2 weeks. And again, I clarify them, is that going to be okay for you, right?
Could you explain the backup offer again, please? I just missed who you're asking about the backup offer. You're asking the people that made offers, or you're talking to the sellers about that? Could you just go over that?
Yeah,
a
of
bit?
course. So for instance, Mr. Navarro made an offer on a property of mine, and we had, I think, 16 or 19 offers.
Yeah.
And he had a very good offer, and a couple other people did. And some people right away, it's like this, price on that one, or they have a house to sell on that one. They're just out the door. It's a thing they can't change, and we're not going to do it. Then you might have a couple that are within range of each other on a couple of items. And then you might move those couple of items to be even closer together. And then it's down to decision time. But before you make that decision in those inquiries, my couple of people that I'm trying to work on getting the best offer for them. And the way I view this in is 100% true is, and Mike and I have talked about this, there is no point in not letting people within legality know what they can do to win. It's helpful to a buyer to let them know if they're out of the running. If you tell them this is what it's going to take and you reveal general information to the top 4 people, like you're doing that buyer a favor. If they can go up, they do. If they can't, they don't, but at least they didn't leave anything there. Nothing is worse as a buyer's agent than like when you get rejected, being like, all right, can we offer this now? And you're like, no, like that time when I said highest and best, that was that time where we would have offered that, right? So as a listing agent, I try to make that possible for buyer's agents ahead of actually accepting something. Bring the highest and best. Not only that, this is what it looks like to the seller. Bring it if you got it, right? And I might not get all the pieces. Then of those people, I say, so we really liked your offer. It was awesome. The sellers just want to look at a couple of things. Do you think you could work on this? And just so I know, if you guys don't get the house, do you think your buyer's open to a backup? Yes, no, they wouldn't do that. They did it before, they're frustrated. And then like my 3 people, I picked number 1. And I'm gonna turn to Mike Navarro, I'm gonna be like, hey Mike, thank you so much for that offer. You guys did a great job. They decided to work with someone else. I know you had said that you guys would be open to a backup. I'd like to offer you backup position number 1. Would you guys like to do that? Right? Does that make sense?
Yeah, so if the number 1 person flames out for whatever reason, financing or inspection or whatever, Mike's got the first shot.
Yeah, and honestly, the most important thing about a backup and the person it benefits the absolute most is the seller, obviously. If you have a backup offer in position and you have inspections, I'm going to call that primary buyer and say, we have a backup in place, so you guys can do inspections, but that's what's up.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not looking to get a long list of things to work on, and that's understood.
Mm-hmm.
I think the key here is at a listing meeting, listing launch present in a meeting here is Michael, we are going through the process from beginning to end. And again, this is step 1, this is the launch, but let me tell you how the rest of this is going to go, right? You're showing that A, you're knowledgeable, and B, you know how to deal with these things, from negotiation to dealing with multiple offers to dealing with appraisal shortfalls of the sales price. Because A, the sellers either know this already and they want to make sure that you can competently communicate this, or B, they had no idea how these houses were getting such high prices and had no idea that buyers were bringing cash over appraisal. You ask 8 out of 10 FSBOs, they're shooting themselves in the foot, because good luck trying to get gap cash, FSBO. They don't even know that's happening because they're not in the market every day. So it's important to show your worth, your intelligence, your abilities by putting it out in front. This is what I'm going to do for you throughout the entire process.
Yep. And it's funny, the mentality, I mean, some people maybe don't educate their buyers either, but I find that it's more common to be like with a buyer, like, hey, this is what we're going to do. And then for some reason with sellers, a lot of people don't do that. It's like, here's all the things I'm going to do, and please pick me. No, like, all right, let's make sure that you understand the process. And in the process of doing that, you're going to understand that I know a heck of a lot of stuff. And if you don't, you should be scripting this out with people or having an experienced listing agent talk you through a listing presentation so you know about all these terms that we just talked about. Is that clear? What you got, Mike, Thomas?
I like it. I do like your launch guide here for sure. And I definitely like what I just said before too. I totally agree with the pricing. You gotta price it under a little bit, or right at below what they're expecting, you know, to get the price that you want in this market for sure.
Yep.
So,
Any
Michael,
questions? Yeah, what's that?
I have a question. So when you're doing your launch presentation or whatever the launch here,
Yep.
Do you bring a listing agreement to have signed at that moment at that table? And B, how do you respond to someone who says, well, I'm interviewing a couple other agents, I'll call you back?
So usually I will know that if that's happening ahead of time, and usually I will try to deal with that before I even go. Something along the lines of, well, if I come out on Tuesday and what I say to you makes sense and you feel like I can do a good job selling your home, do you plan to work with me? Right? If I'm unable to accomplish that, and in the moment the person is like, okay, well, thank you so much. We're going to meet with a couple other people, but we'll let you know. I am careful in my presentation when I'm talking about steps to prep them for things to be cautious of. And I've kind of already bulletproofed myself from a lot of other agents. So if I talked about pricing, I say, okay, well, please, you know, just make sure that when you meet with them, you know, whether you list with me or someone else, it is really important that somebody doesn't buy this listing from you. And what that means is giving you the price that you want or a price that sounds awesome to then have you sit on the market, because as we already talked about, that would be super detrimental to you and you will end up getting less for the home if you even end up selling, right? And you'll be on the market longer and it'll be exhausting and it will devalue the home. So please make sure that doesn't happen. And then I might say, all right, well, please make sure that whoever you meet with is very specific about the way that they market and that they know how to reach the buyer for this home. When I market my properties, I market them to whoever I know the buyer would be locally and nationally. And our team is going to do that online, and they're going to do that within a local network, and they're going to do that even by phone calls to people I already know are looking for this house, and other agents I know who are looking for this house. So please make sure that whoever you work with knows how to, in multiple ways, attract the best buyer for your home in a short period of time.
Okay, Michael, that's great. And I met with an agent from XYZ company, and they're offering to do this for 5%. Similar presentations, and they want to do it for, I'm going to say, we're multiple states, by the way, so we should be careful what we talk about commissions. So the other, we just, as long as we don't say the word splits. The other listing agent is offering to do and all their presentation and services for a 5% commission. What's your commission?
Well, we list for 6%. And another really important thing that you should ask an agent is on their listing agreement, you will see that it says in the main listing agreement, we offer between this amount and this amount to buyers agents. So at Home Sweet Maine, we offer 50% of the commission to attract other buyers coming in. So when you sign with me for 6%, 3% is going to my team to do all the marketing, get it done, and 3% is going to whoever brings that buyer, right? And that is a part of marketing. If that person is offered 2 or 1%, in some ways that is less appealing to that buyer's agent and that buyer to come see the property. So it's really important that you as the seller know what does that split look like and how is it working for you or possibly working against you. So you can know that I'm 6% and I split 3% of that is going to go to whoever brings the buyer. In addition to that, if I happen to bring the buyer, I will credit you back 1% with the buyer that we work with on our team. If you want me to work with the buyer and with you, or my team to work with the buyer and you. So I would be really careful about somebody quoting you a commission of understanding how that's working and who's getting what and if it's working for you. And I would also be really careful about somebody who's offering you less very quickly or changing their commission for you very quickly, because they're not going to be the kind of agent who postures to sellers and postures to sellers agents to get you $15,000 to $20,000 more in just a brief conversation, which I as I showed you earlier, do. It's the subtlety of negotiating and conversations that's going to, you're literally going to see 20,000. You're not going to be worried about a difference of $1,200 on a commission or $2,500 if I have one conversation with someone that gets you $20,000 more, right?
Know your numbers. And if you don't have numbers, new agents, show your market center numbers. Keller Williams Portland, Maine has market center numbers that show the KW agent gets X% over the entire MLS. If you yourself don't have numbers, like Michael has shown his numbers, and I think that's a fantastic part of his presentation. If you don't have numbers, use your market center, lean on your company, because that's okay. You can do that and lean on those numbers.
Any other questions?
I do like, and I remember, I can't remember who it was that said, you know, all these scripts. I can't, you know, when I think about scripts, it doesn't feel natural. Everything Michael has said is a script in his own words. He touched on it a little bit about the 5%, you know, and I've used this in the past. It actually worked. I said, you know, hey, I am not a discount broker. This is my professional service fee. It's 6%. This is what this goes to. This is what this goes to. And that is my fee. I'm not a discount broker. And what if I were to just give up 1% of my commission today? How do you think I would, you know, an agent who's willing to just give up their own commission, how do you think they're going to negotiate when they're negotiating with your money? And so that's worked a couple of times, but yeah. And they're like, whoa, okay, great. So,
and if people are really specific about it in the commission conversation, it doesn't end there. And they're not just like, okay, if they get specific with me, I will get specific with them. You know, XYZ brokerage offer to do it this way. All right, well, you've seen some of my past listings. Are you aware of how they market and how they're closing? Put it on them. Like, okay, well, it sounds good to get an extra % on the sale price. Like, do you know their numbers? Have you looked at their property tours, at their pictures? Do you or not? Because otherwise that seller is making a jump decision based on, oh, you know, I'll get 1% more. At the end of the day, are you really? You don't want to get hustled on the end result.
How do you decide who should get a video tour versus like, and adding that onto photography or to the drone images based on how that's coming out of your cut? Is it a certain priced home or based on that percentage?
Yeah, so this is just me and my team. If the listing, if it would benefit the listing, price is irrelevant to me, right? So if a drone shot would benefit a $30,000 land that we've agreed to list and I'm okay with that, I'm going to do it. If a $5 million house is going to look like crap in a 3D tour, I'm not going to do it. That's how I make the decision. And I don't add on like, okay, well, listen, you're a $200,000 house, but we're going to do this. So I'm going to need you guys to pay for like the drone and the 3D tour on this one, right? If somebody's in a cookie cutter neighborhood and has a cape from 1989 that's right next to 13 other capes from 1989, I'm not going to do like a 5 features video on that home. It will sound funny. Like there's not anything unique about that home outside the neighborhood and what you already know. If I'm selling a house on the ocean front with own beach frontage that happens to have like post and beam construction and you know, custom built-in granite cuts around the beams, I'm going to point out those unique features. It just so happens that price point often makes you do more for these because they have more things they could benefit from. Does that make sense? And I would say 3D tours for me have almost become required lately because there's so many out of town people buying and the timelines are so short that it helps you weed out showings and helps people show up who are serious.
I have a question about that. You said the out of town buyers.
Yeah.
But I mean, obviously we're talking about market center specifics. However, when I see the market center specifics, the out of town buyers are still only like 20%, which is right alongside with what they have been the past few years. Was I reading that wrong? Because
I think so.
Yeah, I think
I'd like to see those numbers. It's about 37% from what I've seen, as opposed to 28.
You said
A lot of them are
47?
showing up with- A lot of them are
37.
showing up with cash.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
All right.
I haven't updated my numbers in a month, but yeah, it is more. And and we're having also about a third of people close with cash, and more of those people are from out of state if you track the two numbers together. So if that's
Okay.
something,
You have a question as well?
Yeah.
Sorry, I saw your hand go up, Trevor.
I was thinking of something on that commission objection. Tell me what you think. So, Michael, let's say you are the person I'm interviewing for the listing,
Yeah.
and you asked me, okay, well, would you take 5%? And
Would you
I'll
take
tell you,
5%, Trevor?
Michael, you've already told me that you trust my knowledge. You know that I'm a hard worker. You like everything about me, but you're asking me to drop my commission rate. So when we interview a buyer or a seller, every time, in essence, we're applying for a new job. So if you were going to interview for a new job and they told you they loved you, they want to hire you, you're everything they've been looking for, but they want you to take 25% cut in your salary, would you take that position?
If I needed it, I would. Do you need this listing, Trevor?
Right. Good point.
I need them all, but I'm not willing to sacrifice my my salary just to get a sale. I want to make sure that I can give you everything, all my services at the top level, and not sacrifice any of it.
So two things on that, Trevor. I think it's very hard for new agents to feel that way because 2.5% listing commission is a whole hell of a lot more than zero. And plus a listing will attract more business. Okay. Very easy to just say, okay, I'll take the 5% because I know it will lead to future business and current business. Number two, I think that's very much about like more self-directed, right? It's about my salary. It's about my income. And I don't think that's the message. The message is, do you want the best agent? And I'm sitting here right now and I am the best agent because I'm a better negotiator. I'm a better listing agent. And my professional service fee is this.
Thank you. I appreciate the input.
Yeah. Any other questions?
No, that was good.
Thoughts on the presentation, things that you feel like you're not quite sure you would be able to do, and why?
Could you briefly touch on that gap money thing that Michael Navarro said? I didn't quite catch what he said with the gap money.
Sure. So you should know this for sure with working with buyers right now. When you make an offer in a market and things are going for 5-10% over list price, there's obviously a question, is it going to appraise?
Yeah.
Right? So it's fine and well for someone to make you an offer, and on the first page of the purchase and sale, there's this glorious number. There's a bunch of other stuff after that that's going to decide whether that number is real or not. And just seeing that number means nothing. Have they been pre-qualified? Is it with a good lender? Are they working with a good agent who's not going to sink this? Is there a due diligence period that they could just back out and they just try to buy your listing with a high offer early on to then chip you down after? So to talk with your seller, you have to talk about all the things that could affect that big old number at the beginning. And one of them is appraisal. So if you're a seller, you want assurance. I want a cash offer with no appraisal and no inspection. That means that literally, if I sign this for all intents and purposes, assuming I've done some due diligence on the cash in the bank, that's what I'm getting. There's nothing that can chip away at that, right? So if someone comes at you with financing in a big offer, 10% over list, that is only as real as the appraiser says it is. So if you're a seller, you don't love that. And if you're a buyer and you're trying to win, you might put in a clause that says the buyer is willing to cover an appraisal shortfall, unlimited, or up to a certain amount, right? So maybe they're willing to cover an appraisal shortfall with a cash contribution of $25,000. And then with your seller, you look at it and you're like, listen, this one just sold here. Do we really think it's going to appraise for 25 under their price? Probably not. Or maybe it is. Maybe we're 75 over and that's still not good enough. Can we keep hunting for more? Can they come up more? Or is that the best we have and it doesn't really matter? And if it appraises less, we're just going to have to deal with it. But the appraisal shortfall coverage is literally like appraiser says it's worth 350. You guys offered 4, you're still paying 4. And you've already agreed before your offer is even accepted. So everyone knows you're paying 4. And I just had this on one. Appraisal came in short. Appraisal shortfall already negotiated. I didn't get an ICA being like, listen, sorry, the appraisal came in a little bit low. Would you guys be willing to come down or split this? It was just like, hey, our appraisal shortfall coverage kicked in. The price is still X. Just want to let you know.
Yeah, that's good.
We're wrapping up here. We're looking to end right at 12:15. We'd love to hear any ahas and any additional questions you all have.
Well, I love the idea of going out and talking about a recent sale in the neighborhood and then trying to drum up more business that way and spark interest. That was a great idea.
Yeah, I think it's a great way to do that. It does not have to be your own listing. You just can't market it without a permission from the listing agent. And also, if you're door knocking, don't pretend it's yours, right? But you can knock a circle prospect around any listing, anybody's. Hey, that house sold down the street. You know, oh, who sold it? You know, Michael Thomas, Keller Williams. Yeah. And I'm just knocking on doors. I heard he had multiple offers. So there's many people looking in this neighborhood. Circle prospect around anybody's listing. We're new agents. You don't have a listing? Circle prospect around somebody listing in your office.
And remember, you don't have to, in person's awesome. You can circle prospect digitally.
Mm-hmm.
By phone, you mean?
Nope, you can do that as well. But if your Facebook audience or your Instagram audience is pertinent to a listing, you can share the same information with the same sort of leading questions digitally and leverage yourself that way.
Also, your geographic neighborhood, farming, your neighborhood. You need to be the real estate agent of choice in your own neighborhood. There's nothing worse than driving home and seeing someone else's sign. That happened to me last year.
This morning.
Yeah. Oh, really? It's the worst. Yeah. It's the worst feeling. Let your neighbors know that you're a real estate agent and you are in their neighborhood. You're a local expert on the micro level. And personally invested, right? To improve the values of your neighborhood.
Any other questions?
I was just because this is about seller leads and stuff too. What are the top 5 sources that you guys are getting for leads right now?
Sorry, say that one more time.
Top 5 sources for seller leads.
For me personally, for sale by owners, expireds, and then I call old expireds in really specific demographics of which I have a lot of information in recent ammunition on. And then I also call multifamily owners by looking them up and saying, hey, who owns multifamily properties, and let in really specific areas and letting them know, that this just sold in that area. Have you guys thought about selling? Like investors who are holding a 3-unit that they might have bought a year and a half ago. Did you know you could cash out $100 grand for your year-long investment? How long would it take you to make that up in rent?
Courtney's hands up.
Thank you. So when you're calling for sale by owners and you're on Flex MLS, I'm assuming, how are you getting those phone numbers?
On Zillow. They put their phone numbers.
They do.
So fun.
Yeah, for sale by
Okay.
owners, we usually have it out there. If it's on Zillow or for salebyowner.com, or it's usually out there because it's the only way they'll get contacted.
So what about expireds?
Expireds, there's a number of resources out there, and I think probably locally there might be some that work better in different areas. Personally, I use truepeoplesearch.com. That's what I use. I've paid for services. I have one now that I have available to me, but I still find that the information I'm finding on there is actually better. Depending on your MLS, you might have Forewarn. There's a couple other things like that, but honestly, there's Google sites that you can use to put in an address and look up a seller and 4 or 5 numbers there and call through them.
You're not using any expired services anymore, like Vortex or Vulcan or any of that stuff, Michael?
Yeah, I mean, I do use Landvoice.
Landvoice.
Yeah. But for my old expireds, which is an aspect of my business, I just am doing the due diligence. I look it up on the MLS and the list that I want to go through, and I look up everyone and see who owned it. You know, the key is on your MLS, you're gonna have to link into the realist information or the tax information, or like your RPR NAR, which is like a offshoot of your MLS, to get the owner's information, and then you're gonna have to follow that to some site.
Go ahead, Courtney. Go ahead.
Also, for solo agents, do you recommend, or at what point do you recommend paying for leads?
I think my answer to that is that anything is worth doing for a period of time as long as you're tracking it, and as long as you've actually done your due diligence. Just because you happen to know the name Zillow and it's familiar to you does not mean you should go pay Zillow for leads. If you looked into Zillow and interviewed someone locally about Zillow and their return is good, sure, go try it for a short period of time, but you damn well better make sure you track your progress and you know your ROI and you're not throwing away money. And that's true for anything you're paying for.
Okay. And have you ever heard of Homes for Heroes? It's kind of
Yep.
the same thing. What do you think about it?
I would say for most things like that, you have to know how it's being received locally and how many people are on it and how much, like, what quality is it coming in for you, right? And I would say for anything where you're getting like a referral source, beyond tracking your true ROI of like, hey, I paid Zillow $1,000 last month and I got one buyer from it and I made that's $7,000. That's not the end of the story. How many crap buyers did you track down on Zillow? How much of your time did that take? And what is the ROI when you factor that in? And is there someone else that is giving you someone ready-made, pre-qualified that you call and you go show 2 houses and you close them? And maybe that's a 30% referral fee versus, like, suppose you pay $250 for this lead over here. But what can you do more with? Because your time is money as well. Makes sense.
Yes. Thank you.
I put the survey link in the chat. If you all could do that, whoever's still here, hopefully we get some survey responses. We'd appreciate that. Any other questions, ahas? Well, Michael, Trio, on behalf of us, thanks everyone for coming.
Thank you.
This was, I think this was the best one yet. I think. I don't know if any of you other guys agree with that. Most like
I
hard
agree.
knowledge, like negotiating stuff. A lot of them are kind of fluffed up, you know? It's kind of like, oh, database every day. And I'm like, I don't need to listen to 4 hours of database, you know? But it's good stuff.
Thanks, guys. Have a great day.
Yes, thank you.
Thanks, Anthony, for that feedback. Appreciate it. Later, all.
Bye.
Go get them. Michael, good job.